The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the void between them. For thousands of years, the Jedi and Sith have wielded this mystical power, shaping the fate of civilizations. But what happens when something arrives from beyond, something that operates on principles the Force cannot touch, carrying weapons the galaxy has never seen, crewed by warriors who know nothing of lightsabers or the dark side? What happens when humanity's greatest warship tears through the fabric of space itself and emerges in a galaxy far, far away? The UNSC Infinity had been humanity's triumph, 5 kilometers of cutting-edge military engineering, forerunner technology integrated into every system, a crew of 17,000 souls, and enough firepower to crack a continent. It had survived the Human Covenant War, faced the Did Act, and pushed back the Created. But when the slip-space rupture occurred during an emergency jump near Installation 07, none of that mattered. The Forerunner enhanced drive had intersected with something it was never designed to encounter, a dimension where space folded differently, where faster-than-light travel operated on incomprehensible principles. The breach lasted 3 seconds. For the crew, it felt like falling through broken glass made of stars. Captain Thomas Lasky gripped his command chair as reality stabilized around them, the bridge bathed in crimson emergency lighting. Holographic displays flickered back to life, damage reports cascading across every screen. Behind him, navigation stations sparked and died. The main viewport showed an unfamiliar star field, constellations that matched nothing in UNSC records. "Roland, status report." Lasky barked. The ship's AI materialized beside him, his usually confident avatar glitching. "Slip-space drive is completely offline, Captain. We're venting atmosphere on decks 9 through 12. Shield integrity at 47%. Reactor 3 is in emergency shutdown," and Roland paused, his expression unreadable for an artificial intelligence. "Sir, I can't establish connection with any UNSC beacon. No satellite network. No comm buoys. Nothing." "What do you mean, nothing?" "I mean we're not in UNSC space anymore, Captain. I'm not even sure we're in our galaxy." Before Lasky could respond, the sensor station erupted with alerts. Lieutenant Dominique pressed her hand to her earpiece, eyes widening. "Captain, we have multiple contacts inbound. Configuration unknown. They're massive, approximately 1,600 meters each. Weapons charging." On the viewport, 3 wedge-shaped vessels emerged from hyperspace, their surfaces bristling with gun batteries. They were elegant in a brutal way, painted in Imperial gray, each one bearing the insignia of the Galactic Empire. To the bridge crew of the Infinity, they looked primitive, no energy shielding signatures, visible armor plating, exposed superstructure. But their weapons were very much active. "Receiving transmission, communications reported. Audio only, language unknown. Roland, translate." The AI worked for 2 seconds. "Done. Patching through now." A crisp, authoritative voice filled the bridge, speaking accented English through Roland's translation matrix. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted Imperial space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in your destruction. You have 1 minute." Lasky exchanged glances with his executive officer. 1 minute. The Empire, whatever that meant here, didn't negotiate. "Battle stations," Lasky ordered quietly. "Charge MAC cannons 1 through 4. Launch alert fighters. And somebody get me the Master Chief." Deep in the Infinity's armory bay, Spartan 117 was already armored. John had felt the slip-space rupture in his bones, that distinctive wrongness when physics bent in ways they shouldn't. 30 years of combat had given him instincts that transcended tactical training. Something had gone catastrophically wrong, and when things went wrong on a warship, Spartans prepared for boarding actions. His MJOLNIR-powered assault armor, Gen 3 platform, hummed as systems initialized. Energy shields at full capacity. Motion tracker calibrated. MA-5D assault rifle mag locked to his back, M6H Magnum holstered at his thigh. In his hands, he held his signature weapon, an MA-40 configured for close-quarters ship defense. "Chief." The voice came through his helmet. "Calm, Captain Lasky. We've got company. 3 hostile warships demanding our surrender. I need you in the hangar bay. If they try to board, you're our welcoming committee." "Understood," John replied, his voice that characteristic rumble that had steadied countless Marines under fire. "On my way." He moved through the corridor at a pace that would exhaust an unaugmented human but was a measured jog for a Spartan too. Around him, crew members rushed to damage control stations, their faces tight with controlled panic. They didn't know where they were. Neither did John. But location didn't matter when hostiles were inbound. The hangar bay was controlled chaos. Pelican dropships were being prepped for emergency deployment, their pilots running pre-flight checks. Longsword fighters screamed out of the launch tubes, their engines flaring blue as they took defensive positions around Infinity's wounded hull. And standing in formation near the primary airlock were 24 Spartan versus, their armor painted in various unit colors, weapons ready. Spartan Commander Sarah Palmer approached, her armor's gold trim identifying her rank. "Chief. Good to see you. Captain thinks they might try to board us." John nodded toward the airlock. "They try, we stop them. Works for me." Palmer checked her BR-85 battle rifle. "Gotta say though, those ships out there. They look like they were built in a museum. No shielding, visible armor seams, chemical propulsion for their fighters. If it comes to a fight." The ship shuddered. Not from weapons impact. From something latching onto the hull. Roland's voice echoed through the bay, "Breach alert. Unknown boarding craft attached to portside airlock. They're cutting through. Chief, they're coming to you." John raised his rifle, and 24 Spartans did the same, forming a 3-tiered firing line facing the airlock. The cutting torch on the other side glowed white-hot, melting through Infinity's outer hull with surprising efficiency. These people, whoever they were, had technology that worked, even if it looked ancient. The airlock blew inward with a concussive blast. Smoke filled the bay. And through it marched soldiers in white armor. Stormtroopers, though John didn't know that name yet, poured through the breach in a disciplined formation, their E-11 blaster rifles raised. They moved with military precision, boots striking the deck in unison, the lead trooper's voice amplified through his helmet speaker, "Secure the hangar. Disable all resistance." They saw the Spartans. There was a moment, a single frozen heartbeat, where both forces assessed each other. The stormtroopers saw massive armored figures, over 7 feet tall in their powered suits, weapons that looked brutally efficient, and absolute stillness. No panic. No fear. Just professional warriors waiting. The Spartans saw soldiers in plastic-looking armor carrying energy weapons, moving in tight formation, numerically superior but clustered in the fatal funnel of the breached airlock. John's voice cut through the tension, "Fire." 25 assault rifles opened up simultaneously. The difference between UNSC ballistic weapons and what the stormtroopers expected was profound. Their armor was designed to dissipate blaster bolt energy, to protect against plasma impacts. It was not designed to stop armor-piercing rounds traveling at supersonic velocity, fired from weapons that had been refined through 30 years of war against energy-shielded aliens. The first rank of stormtroopers went down in seconds, their armor cracking under impacts that punched through plastoid-like paper. The second rank tried to return fire, their blaster bolts screaming across the hangar bay in brilliant red streaks. Most missed, targeting armored opponents who moved with superhuman speed was something no Imperial training had prepared them for. The few shots that connected splashed against Spartan energy shields, dissipating in harmless flashes. "Advance," John ordered. The Spartans moved forward as one, their firing line becoming a walking wall of suppression. Stormtroopers fell back toward the breach, their formation collapsing. Some tried to drag wounded comrades. Others fired wildly, panic overriding training. John reached the breach point and grabbed the leading stormtrooper by the chest plate, his augmented strength lifting the soldier off his feet effortlessly. "Call off your attack," he said calmly. "Now." The trooper's helmet tilted up toward John's golden visor, and even through the armor, John could sense the fear. Behind them, the Imperial boarding craft detached, its pilot clearly deciding that whatever was inside this alien warship, it wasn't worth the casualties. John released the trooper, who scrambled back through the breach. Palmer moved up beside him, watching the Imperial craft retreat. Well, that was their first mistake. What do you think their second one will be? John stared out at the 3-star destroyers holding position outside, their turbolaser batteries beginning to glow with targeting locks. "Thinking we won't shoot back," he said quietly. On the bridge, Captain Lasky watched the tactical display as the Imperial vessels prepared to fire. He'd given them a chance to withdraw. They'd refused. The Infinity was wounded, in unknown space, with no support and no way home. But she was still the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. "Roland, target the lead vessel. Mac rounds, full spread." The AI's avatar smiled grimly. "With pleasure, Captain." Deep in the Infinity's spine, magnetic accelerators charged with a sound like thunder being born. The galaxy far, far away was about to learn what humanity brought to war. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The first Mac round left the Infinity's primary cannon at 4% the speed of light. It was a simple principle that humanity had perfected over centuries of warfare: accelerate a massive tungsten slug using magnetic fields until it carried enough kinetic energy to punch through anything in its path. No plasma. No exotic particles. Just mass and velocity married to devastating effect. The Imperial Star Destroyer's captain had 3 seconds to register the projectile on his sensors before it hit. The round struck the Star Destroyer's forward hull at a shallow angle, exactly where Roland had calculated the shield generators would be located if this vessel followed standard capital ship design philosophy. Except there were no shields. The tungsten penetrator tore through the armored hull like it was tissue paper, the kinetic energy transfer creating a catastrophic pressure wave that ripped through 12 decks instantaneously. Secondary explosions blossomed along the destroyer's superstructure as power conduits overloaded. The massive vessel lurched sideways from the impact, its reactor containment failing in a chain reaction that turned the forward third of the ship into an expanding cloud of superheated debris. On the Infinity's bridge, Lieutenant Dominique's voice was steady but shocked. "Direct hit. Target is. Captain, their ship is breaking apart." One shot. Lasky kept his expression neutral, but internally he was recalculating everything. These vessels looked formidable, larger than anything the Covenant had fielded except their assault carriers, but their defensive capabilities were decades behind UNSC standards. No energy shielding. Armor that couldn't withstand Mac penetration. It was like fighting with one hand tied behind your back and discovering your opponent had both hands tied. "Broadcast on all Imperial frequencies," Lasky ordered. "Roland, make sure they understand us." The AI nodded, his avatar flickering as he managed a dozen systems simultaneously. Translation matrix locked. "You're live, Captain." Lasky leaned forward. "Imperial vessels, this is Captain Thomas Lasky of the United Nations Space Command warship Infinity. We did not come here to fight. Stand down immediately, or we will defend ourselves." For 10 seconds, there was silence. Then the remaining 2 Star Destroyers opened fire. Turbolaser batteries erupted in coordinated salvos, hundreds of emerald energy bolts converging on the Infinity's position. The bridge crew braced as the first impact struck, but Roland's Forerunner-enhanced shields held firm. The energy dissipated across the barrier in rippling waves of light, each blast absorbed and redistributed across the shield matrix. It was technology the Empire had no context for, energy shielding that could withstand sustained bombardment, regenerating faster than their weapons could deplete it. Shields holding at 92%, Roland reported. Their weapons are powerful, but they're thermal-based energy. Our shields were designed to stop Covenant plasma, this is actually less intense. Return fire, Lasky said quietly. Disable, don't destroy. Target their engines. The Infinity's secondary Mach cannon spoke. 2 rounds, fired simultaneously at different targets. The first struck the portside Star Destroyer's engine block, the impact shearing off the entire propulsion array in a shower of sparks and venting gas. The ship immediately lost maneuvering capability, drifting in space like a wounded animal. The second round clipped the starboard destroyer's bridge tower, the precision shot decapitating the command structure without triggering a reactor breach. Both vessels went dark, their weapons falling silent as emergency systems struggled to compensate for catastrophic damage. Imperial fleet neutralized, Dominique reported. They're transmitting distress signals. Should we jam them? Lasky shook his head. Let them call for help. Maybe whoever responds will be more interested in talking than shooting. He turned to Roland. Pull back our fighters. I want damage control teams focused on getting our slipspace drive operational. And find us a planet, somewhere quiet where we can make repairs. The AI's avatar gestured, pulling up a star chart. Scanning. I've got a desert planet, 2 astronomical units from here. Minimal technological signatures. Some settlements, but nothing that registers as military grade. Designation in their database translates to Tatooine. Master Chief stood in the hangar bay, watching recovery teams seal the breach the stormtroopers had cut. The firefight had lasted less than 90 seconds. 15 enemy casualties, 0 friendly losses. The wounded stormtroopers who'd been left behind were now in the Infinity's medical bay, their armor removed, their injuries being treated by UNSC personnel who'd never seen anything like their equipment. Palmer approached, her helmet under one arm. Intel team just finished examining their gear. Chief, their weapons are energy-based, some kind of plasma analog, but the containment is crude. No shielding on their armor at all. And their tactics, she shook her head. They bunched up in a kill zone. Basic mistakes. They weren't expecting resistance, John observed. He'd seen it before, militaries that had grown complacent, fighting enemies who couldn't match their technology. The Covenant had made similar mistakes early in the war, before they learned to respect human ingenuity. They'll adapt. Maybe. But their ships. Palmer pulled up a tactical image on her datapad. Captain just took apart 3 capital vessels with 4 Mach rounds. If that's their best. John didn't respond immediately. He was thinking about the broader picture. The Infinity was alone in hostile space, cut off from UNSC command, surrounded by an unknown empire with unknown resources. Yes, they'd won this engagement. But one warship, even one as powerful as Infinity, couldn't hold off an entire galaxy indefinitely. Commander Palmer, Roland's voice echoed through the bay. Captain Lasky wants all senior staff in the conference room. 30 minutes. Palmer nodded toward John. Guess we're about to find out what happens next. The conference room was packed. Captain Lasky stood at the head of the table, flanked by Roland's avatar. Around the table sat the Infinity's department heads, Commander Palmer, representing the Spartan contingent, Dr. Glassman, Chief Engineer, Dr. Halsey, on a secure video feed from her lab deep in the ship, and several other senior officers. Lasky activated the holographic display, showing the 3 disabled Star Destroyers. Let's start with what we know. We're in unknown space, Roland confirms none of our star charts match local constellations. We encountered hostile forces calling themselves the Empire, who attempted to board us and, when that failed, opened fire. We defended ourselves. Dr. Glassman leaned forward. Captain, I've examined the wreckage from the boarding craft we disabled. Their technology is inconsistent. Advanced energy weapons, yes, but their manufacturing is almost artisanal. Hand-fitted components. No standardized molecular assembly. And their computing systems, he shook his head in disbelief. They're using positronic circuits. We abandoned those 50 years ago. Which means? Palmer asked. Which means their technology developed along a completely different path than ours. They have capabilities we don't, those energy weapons, faster than light travel that doesn't use slip space, but in other areas, they're generations behind. Dr. Halsey's voice came through the speaker, cool and analytical. Captain, have we attempted to communicate beyond military channels? If this is a first contact scenario, we need intelligence. Culture, politics, technological base, strategic resources. That's why I've called this meeting, Lasky said. He gestured, and Roland brought up a new display, a planetary scan of Tatooine. We're moving to this location for repairs. It's a low-population world, minimal military presence. We'll send a small team to the surface to gather information. Learn about this galaxy we found ourselves in. Every eye in the room turned to John. The Spartan had been standing near the back, as was his preference. He met Lasky's gaze and nodded once. I'll go. Take a small team. Spartans only, we don't know what kind of reception you'll get. Your mission is reconnaissance. Learn what you can about the local population, their government, their military capabilities. And find out if there's anyone in this galaxy who might help us get home. Palmer crossed her arms. And if we run into more of those stormtroopers? Avoid engagement if possible, Lasky said firmly. We won this battle, but we don't want a war. Not yet. Not until we understand what we're up against. John absorbed the orders, already running tactical scenarios in his head. A desert planet. Unknown hostiles. Information gathering. It was the kind of mission Spartans had been running since before the Covenant War. Different galaxy, same principles. One more thing, Roland interjected, his avatar's expression unusually serious. I've been analyzing the communications we intercepted from those star destroyers before we disabled them. Their distress signals mentioned something specific. They called us alien technology and referenced a threat assessment protocol. But they also mentioned a name, someone they were calling in to investigate. Who? Lasky asked. They called him Vader. And based on the priority of the transmission, whoever this Vader is, the Empire considers him their solution to problems conventional forces can't handle. The name meant nothing to anyone in the room. But the way it had been transmitted, with a mixture of fear and reverence, suggested this was someone even the Empire's military feared. John checked his motion tracker out of habit, a gesture that had kept him alive through countless battles. When do we deploy? 6 hours, Lasky said. That gives engineering time to prep a Pelican and gives you time to select your team. Chief, he paused, meeting John's eyes. We're a long way from home. Whatever's down there, whatever this Empire is, we need to understand it before it understands us. John turned toward the door, Palmer falling into step beside him. Behind them, the holographic display continued to rotate, showing a galaxy of unfamiliar stars, worlds they'd never heard of, and threats they couldn't yet comprehend. The Infinity was the most powerful warship humanity had ever built, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand bombardment that would vaporize lesser vessels. But power without intelligence was just noise. And in a galaxy where 3-meter-tall warriors could be cut down by energy swords and ships could travel faster than light without slip space, the UNSC was about to learn that their definitions of warfare might not apply. Somewhere in the outer rim, aboard an Imperial star destroyer that had received the distress signal, a figure stood in a meditation chamber. He was tall, encased in black armor that hissed with each mechanical breath. His presence filled the room like gravity, like the weight of collapsed stars. And when the Admiral entered to deliver the report about the alien warship, Darth Vader turned slowly, his mask reflecting no light, his voice a deep mechanical rasp. Show me. The Pelican dropship descended through Tatooine's atmosphere with the kind of controlled precision only UNSC pilots achieved after years of combat insertions. Inside the troop bay, Master Chief sat motionless, his armor's environmental systems compensating for the rising heat as they dropped toward the desert world's surface. Across from him sat 3 Spartan versus Thorn, a tactical specialist, Madsen, heavy weapons, and Grant, communications and intelligence. Approaching drop zone, the pilot's voice crackled through their helmets. Local settlement designated Mos Eisley. Population approximately 5,000. Multiple structures, spaceport facilities, no military installations detected. You're clear for insertion. John watched through the Pelican's viewport as endless dunes gave way to a sprawling collection of domed buildings and landing pads. The settlement looked ancient, weathered by centuries of sandstorms, its architecture simple but functional. Several spacecraft sat on various pads, designs John didn't recognize, all curves and asymmetry, nothing like UNSC angular efficiency. Remember, John said, his voice carrying command authority even at low volume, we're here to observe and gather intelligence. No engagement unless fired upon. We need information about this galaxy, government structure, military capabilities, civilian sentiment toward the Empire. And if locals get curious about us? Thorn asked, checking his M395 DMR. We tell them the truth. We're explorers from far away. That's not a lie. The Pelican touched down on an empty pad on the settlement's outskirts, its landing gear absorbing the impact with hydraulic efficiency. The rear ramp lowered, and immediately the heat struck them. 50 degrees Celsius, the twin suns of Tatooine beating down with merciless intensity. John's armor compensated instantly, but he could feel the environmental difference. This was a harsh world. They moved down the ramp in tactical formation, weapons lowered but ready. The spaceport around them was busy, aliens of species John had never seen loading cargo, mechanics working on ships that looked like they'd been repaired 1,000 times, droids rolling past on errands that required no human oversight. The sight of artificial intelligences working openly, without rebellion protocols or containment measures, was jarring for Spartans raised in a post-created galaxy. A few heads turned toward them. A Rodian loading crates paused mid-lift. A Twi'lek pilot stopped her pre-flight check. Human merchants in the distance pointed. For armored giants, over 7 feet tall, carrying weapons that looked brutal and efficient, moving with military precision, they were impossible to miss. We're attracting attention, Grant murmured through the comm. Expected, John replied. He spotted what looked like a cantina, a low building with beings entering and exiting, the universal sign of a place where information could be found. Thorn, Madsen, secure the Pelican. Grant, with me. They crossed the dusty plaza, each step measured. Local residents gave them wide berth, some ducking into doorways, others simply staring. John noted their reactions, mostly fear, some curiosity, no immediate hostility. These were civilians who'd learned to avoid trouble, living on a frontier world where asking questions could be dangerous. The cantina's entrance was a curved archway. John had to duck slightly to enter, his armor scraping the top of the doorframe. Inside, the dim interior was filled with a haze of smoke and the smell of alcohol cut with something acrid. A band played in the corner, non-human musicians creating discordant but rhythmic music. Dozens of patrons filled the space, smugglers, bounty hunters, off-worlders of every species imaginable. The music died instantly when John entered. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The bartender, a human with a scarred face and the look of someone who'd seen everything, froze mid-pour. John's motion tracker lit up with contacts. 47 beings, most carrying weapons. Energy pistols holstered at hips. Some kind of rifle analogs leaning against tables. These weren't civilians. These were the kind of people who lived in gray areas, between law and chaos. He walked to the bar, his boots heavy on the stone floor. Grant took up position behind him, his MA-5D held low but unmistakably ready. The bartender, his name tag read, Wother, in a script Roland was translating in real time on John's HUD, swallowed hard. What are you? Wother managed. Travelers, John said simply. His external speakers made his voice resonate in the enclosed space. Looking for information. We don't serve droids here, Wother said reflexively, then seemed to realize how absurd that sounded given what stood before him. We're not droids. John placed a small device on the bar, a UNSC credit chip, worthless here but impressive-looking technology. We can pay for information. We need to know about the government of this galaxy. The military. Who's in charge? The bartender glanced at the credit chip, then at John's visor, then at the weapon mag locked to the Spartan's back. His hands shook slightly. You're not from around here. Not from anywhere in the Outer Rim. Not even the unknown regions. Where did you come from? Farther than you'd believe, Grant said. A voice spoke from the corner, gravelly, amused, dangerous. Empire's in charge, stranger. The Galactic Empire. Emperor Palpatine rules from Coruscant, and his reach extends to every civilized world. Even backwaters like this. John turned. The speaker was a humanoid male, rough-looking, wearing a vest and carrying a blaster pistol in a quick-draw holster. His companion was tall, covered in brown fur, carrying a weapon that looked like a crossbow but hummed with energy. The furry being growled something in a language John didn't recognize. Chewbacca agrees with me, the human continued, leaning back in his chair with calculated casualty. You picked a bad time to arrive in this galaxy, friend. Empire's tightening the noose. Destroyed an entire planet a few months ago, Alderaan. Billions dead. They've got a weapon that can crack worlds like eggs. John processed that information instantly. A planet-killing weapon. The strategic implications were staggering. And people accept this? The human laughed bitterly. Accept? There's a rebellion fighting back. Princess Leia leads them, or did, until the Empire captured her. Tortured her. Made her watch as they destroyed her home world. His expression darkened. Most folks keep their heads down though. Empire's got Star Destroyers, TIE Fighters, Stormtroopers on every major world. You cross them, you disappear. Or worse, Wother added quietly. They send Vader. That name again. John's tactical instincts flagged it as critical intelligence. Who is Vader? The cantina went even quieter, if that was possible. Beings exchanged nervous glances. Someone near the back got up and left, moving quickly. The human smuggler's casual demeanor cracked slightly. You really are from far away. Darth Vader is the Emperor's enforcer. Part man, part machine, all terror. He leads the Imperial military. Hunts Jedi, the old guardians of peace, wielders of the Force. Vader can choke you from across a room with his mind. Can deflect blaster bolts with his hands. Killed more rebels than the entire Outer Rim fleet combined. Impossible, Grant said. No being can. The Force isn't about what's possible, a new voice interrupted. It's about what is. An old man stood in the doorway, weathered face, simple robes, white beard, eyes that seemed to see through armor and into something deeper. He moved with a grace that belied his age, and John's threat assessment system immediately flagged him as dangerous despite the lack of visible weapons. The old man approached the bar, and the crowd parted for him like water around stone. He studied John with open curiosity. You're not from this galaxy. I can sense it, you exist outside the Force, like a void where connection should be. Fascinating. Who are you? John asked, his hand moving incrementally closer to his sidearm. Someone who knows what you are, soldier. You're a warrior from another place, trained for combat since childhood, enhanced beyond normal human limits, given armor and weapons that make you nearly invincible. Your ship, the one in orbit, is damaged. You seek understanding of this galaxy, hoping to find a way home. The old man smiled gently. I'm called Ben Kenobi. And I've been waiting for something interesting to happen on this dull planet for a very long time. John's HUD showed his elevated heart rate spike, then immediately regulate as his augmentations compensated. This man, Kenobi, had described details that should be impossible to know. No intelligence could travel that fast. Unless. You read minds, John stated. The Force allows me to sense intentions, emotions, echoes of purpose. Your mind is unusual. Disciplined. Compartmentalized. Military training, clearly, but something more. You fought wars that lasted decades. Lost comrades. Followed orders that haunted you. And yet, your loyalty remains absolute. Kenobi's expression grew serious. But you need to leave this cantina. Now. The Empire received reports of your ship engaging their fleet. They're sending investigators to Tatooine. And Vader himself is en route. The smuggler, who John was beginning to suspect might be important in ways not yet clear, stood abruptly. Vader's coming here. Old man, why didn't you lead with that? Because, Han Solo, sometimes the Force requires us to meet our fate head-on rather than run from it. Kenobi turned back to John. Spartan, yes, I know that's what you are. Your arrival has disrupted something. The Force is in flux around you, possibilities branching in directions I cannot see. If Vader finds you, many will die. Your people. His people. Innocents caught between. Then we won't let him find us, John said. He activated his comm, Thorn, Madsen, prepped the Pelican for immediate dust-off. We're leaving. Chief, we've got movement, Thorn's voice came back, tense. Multiple contacts. Imperial Lambda-class shuttle landing 200 meters from our position. Stormtroopers deploying. And something else. Sir, there's a figure in black armor. He just stopped. Like he's sensing something. John moved toward the exit, Grant following. Kenobi called after them, you can't fight him with weapons, Spartan. Vader is beyond such things. Everyone can be fought, John replied, reaching the doorway. Outside, the twin suns glared down on a scene that had transformed in minutes. 20 stormtroopers formed a perimeter around the plaza, their white armor stark against the dusty buildings. And standing in the center, a figure that made John's tactical assessment systems flash warning indicators despite no weapon being visible. Darth Vader stood nearly 7 feet tall in his armor, black cape flowing despite the lack of wind, breathing with mechanical rhythm that echoed across the suddenly silent spaceport. His helmet turned slowly, scanning the area, and when his gaze fell upon the cantina entrance, he went absolutely still. There, Vader's voice carried like thunder wrapped in broken metal. I sense something wrong. A void in the Force. He began walking toward the cantina. Toward John. 200 meters. 150. Every step deliberate, inexorable. John's hand moved to his assault rifle, knowing somehow that the next 60 seconds would define everything that followed. Behind him, Han Solo muttered, this is gonna get messy. And Ben Kenobi whispered, may the Force be with you, Master Chief. You're going to need it. Master Chief had faced countless enemies across 3 decades of war. Covenant elites who moved like liquid shadow. Promethean knights that teleported mid-combat. The Didact himself, a forerunner warrior king with technology that bent reality. He'd learned long ago that hesitation killed, and that every opponent, no matter how powerful, could be neutralized with the right tactics and execution. But watching Darth Vader approach, John felt something he rarely experienced, uncertainty. It wasn't fear. Spartans were conditioned beyond that. It was tactical dissonance, his combat algorithms couldn't model the threat properly. Vader moved with absolute confidence, no weapon drawn, surrounded by stormtroopers who might as well have been decorative for all the protection they offered him. The Force, this energy field Kenobi had mentioned, was an unknown variable John's training had no framework for. "Grant, fall back to the Pelican," John ordered quietly. "Get airborne. If this goes wrong, RTB to the Infinity." "Chief, I'm not leaving you." "That's an order, Spartan." Grant hesitated 1 second, then moved. Discipline overrode loyalty, as it had to. John heard his boots crunching across sand as he sprinted toward the landing pad where Thorne and Madsen were already firing up the Pelican's engines. Vader stopped 50 meters away. His mask tilted slightly, as if examining something that puzzled him. Behind that black Dura-Steel facade, John knew someone, or something, was analyzing him in turn. "You are not of this galaxy," Vader said. His voice carried authority that transcended volume, each word enunciated with mechanical precision. "I sense no connection to the Force in you. No midichlorians binding you to the living energy that flows through all things. You are absence. A void." John said nothing. Talking wasn't going to solve this. But neither was opening fire, not yet. Not until he understood what he was dealing with. His HUD tracked the stormtroopers fanning out in a perimeter, their E-11 blasters raised but not firing. They were waiting for Vader's command. "Your ship destroyed 3 Star Destroyers," Vader continued, taking another step forward. "Technology beyond what the Rebel Alliance possesses. Weapons that strike with kinetic force rather than energy. And you, armored in metal that resonates with purpose, enhanced beyond human limitations. Another step. The Emperor will want you brought before him. Your technology will serve the Empire. You will tell us where you came from and how to acquire more of your weapons." "Not going to happen," John replied, his voice flat. Vader's breathing, that distinctive mechanical rhythm, seemed to deepen. "You have no choice. You are one warrior in a galaxy of trillions. Your ship is damaged. You have no allies. Surrender, and you will be treated with the respect a soldier deserves. Resist, and I will take you by force." John's hand moved to his assault rifle, a motion so smooth it appeared effortless. "You can try." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The plaza held its breath. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then Vader raised his right hand, palm open, and John felt something he'd never experienced before, an invisible pressure against his entire body, like being gripped by a giant fist made of nothing. His armor registered the external force, servos straining as something tried to crush him, to lift him off the ground through sheer will. Force choke. The Emperor's Enforcer's signature technique. But John wasn't an ordinary human. His MJOLNIR armor was powered by a fusion reactor, its titanium ceramic composite designed to withstand plasma fire and explosive decompression. His augmented skeleton and reinforced muscles could bear loads that would shatter unenhanced bone. And his will, forged through decades of impossible missions, didn't break under pressure. He took a step forward. Vader's mask tilted in what might have been surprise. The pressure increased. John's armor warned him of stress on multiple systems, but he took another step. The force was powerful, John could feel it trying to crush his throat, to stop his heart, but it was working against technology and biology that operated on principles this galaxy had never encountered. "Impossible," Vader's voice carried genuine shock. John raised his MA-5D and fired. The 3-round burst crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. Vader's hand moved with inhuman speed, and suddenly a blade of pure crimson energy ignited in his grip, a lightsaber, John's threat database catalogued, deflecting 2 of the rounds with precision that should have been impossible. The 3rd round passed within centimeters of Vader's helmet before the Sith Lord twisted aside. The stormtroopers opened fire immediately. 24 blaster bolts converged on John's position, red energy streaks filling the air. His shields absorbed the impacts, each hit depleting the barrier by fractions of a percent. These weapons weren't as powerful as Covenant plasma rifles, painful, certainly lethal to unshielded targets, but manageable. Jon moved. Spartan augmentations pushed him to 40 km per hour in 3 strides, his armor amplifying his speed. He wasn't running, he was advancing, closing the distance to Vader while his rifle barked controlled bursts at the stormtroopers. 2 went down immediately, their armor cracking under armor-piercing rounds. 3 more fell as Jon shifted targets with combat-trained efficiency. Vader didn't retreat. Instead, he thrust his left hand forward, and Jon felt an invisible wall of force slam into him like being hit by a warthog at full speed. His shields flared, absorbing the kinetic energy, but the impact drove him back 5 meters, his boots carving trenches in the sand. "You resist the force through technology," Vader observed, walking forward with his lightsaber humming. "Impressive. But technology can be overcome." He gestured, and Jon's rifle was torn from his hands by invisible force, flying through the air to land 20 meters away. Before Jon could draw his sidearm, Vader was on him, moving with speed that matched a Spartan's, that crimson blade sweeping in an arc designed to sever Jon's arm at the shoulder. Jon caught the blade on his forearm. The lightsaber shrieked as it met MJOLNIR armor's energy shielding, plasma meeting plasma in a shower of sparks. The blade didn't cut through, the shields held for 2 seconds before overloading, and Jon used those seconds to pivot inside Vader's reach and drive his fist into the Sith Lord's chest plate with enough force to crumple titanium. Vader staggered back, his breathing stuttering. Jon's HUD registered the impact, enough kinetic energy to shatter ribs, rupture organs. But Vader was already recovering, his hand rising again. This time, instead of crushing force, Jon felt his entire body lift off the ground. Vader's telekinesis was precise, controlled, and he hurled Jon backwards like a projectile. The Spartan crashed through the cantina wall, duracrete and timber exploding around him. Inside, patrons screamed and scattered. Jon rolled to his feet immediately, his shields recharging, structural damage minimal. Through the hole in the wall, he saw Vader approaching, stormtroopers forming up behind him. The Sith Lord's breathing was labored now, that punch had done damage. But he wasn't stopping. "Your resistance is admirable," Vader said, stepping through the breach. "But futile. The Force is infinite. Your technology is finite." "So far, technology's winning," Jon replied. He drew his M6H Magnum, the heavy pistol designed for anti-armor work. Vader's response was to thrust both hands forward, and suddenly every object in the cantina, tables, chairs, bottles, even the bar itself, lifted into the air and flew at Jon like shrapnel. The Spartan dove, his augmented reflexes letting him roll under a table that would have decapitated him, but a chair caught his shoulder and a bottle shattered against his helmet. His shields held but were draining fast. He came up firing. The Magnum roared, its high-explosive rounds tracking Vader's center mass. The Sith Lord's lightsaber became a blur, deflecting shots with precision that seemed precognitive. Because it was, Jon realized Vader was seeing the future, or something close to it, using this Force ability to predict where the rounds would be before they arrived. Adaptation. Jon shifted targets, firing at the floor near Vader's feet. The explosive rounds detonated, kicking up dust and debris that obscured vision. In that half-second of blindness, Jon closed the distance again, his armor's strength amplification letting him grab a table and swing it like a club. Vader sliced it in half mid-swing, but Jon was already inside his guard again. This time, instead of punching, he grabbed Vader's lightsaber arm at the wrist, his armored hand locking with hydraulic pressure that could crush steel. Vader's free hand came up, and Jon felt that crushing force on his throat again, but at this range, he could leverage his physical strength. They grappled, technology versus force, Spartan training versus Sith mastery. For 10 seconds they were locked, neither able to gain advantage, the lightsaber held between them like a barrier of pure energy. Then Vader's voice came, strained, "You are strong, warrior." Stronger than any I have faced since Obi-Wan. But strength alone is insufficient. Jon felt the Force shift, not attacking him, but attacking his armor. Systems began failing as Vader used telekinesis with surgical precision, finding weak points, overloading circuits, disrupting the fusion reactor's magnetic containment. It was like fighting an enemy who could hack his equipment through willpower alone. Warning indicators flooded Jon's HUD. Shield generator offline. Left arm servo jammed. Reactor approaching critical. Outside, the Pelican's engines roared. Through the cantina's broken wall, Jon saw the dropship rising, its chin-mounted cannon swiveling toward Vader's position. "Chief, we've got you." Thorne's voice over the comm, "Break contact, will provide covering fire." Jon made the tactical calculation instantly. He couldn't beat Vader, not here, not now, not without understanding how to counter the Force. But he could survive, regroup, adapt. That was what Spartans did. He released Vader's wrist and activated his armor's thruster pack, a burst of propulsion that threw him backwards through the cantina wall and into open air. The Pelican was already moving to intercept, its troop bay ramp lowering. Jon hit the sand, rolled, and sprinted. 45 kilometers per hour. Blaster fire from the stormtroopers streaked around him, but his damaged shield still deflected most hits. 10 meters. 5. The Pelican's ramp was right there. Vader's voice echoed across the plaza, and Jon felt himself stop. Not his choice. The Force had seized him mid-stride, holding him suspended in the air like an insect in amber. His armor strained against the invisible grip, servos whining in protest. Vader walked forward slowly, his breathing heavy, his right hand extended with fingers curled as if physically grasping something. "You will not escape," Vader said. "The Emperor commands it." Inside the Pelican, Madsen swiveled the M247H heavy machine gun toward Vader. "Chief, I've got a shot." "Negative," Jon forced out through gritted teeth. The pressure on his armor was increasing, and he could hear structural components beginning to crack. Civilian population. Too much collateral. "But Chief." A new sound cut through the tension, the snap hiss of another lightsaber igniting. Ben Kenobi stepped into the plaza, his simple robe seeming to glow in the twin sun's light, a blue blade held in a guard position that looked ancient and formal. "Hello, Vader," Kenobi said calmly. "It's been a long time." The pressure on Jon vanished instantly as Vader turned, his entire focus shifting to the old man. Obi-Wan. The name was spoken with venom and something else, pain, perhaps. Old wounds reopened. "When we last met, I was but the learner. Now I am the master." "Only a master of evil, Darth," Kenobi replied. He glanced at Jon. "Go, Spartan. This is not your fight." "Not yet." Jon didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted the final meters and dove into the Pelican's troop bay. The ramp sealed behind him as the dropship climbed, engines screaming. Through the viewport, Jon watched Vader and Kenobi circle each other, lightsabers raised, two masters of an ancient art preparing for a duel that had nothing to do with the UNSC and everything to do with a conflict far older than humanity's presence in this galaxy. "Chief, you all right?" Grant asked, helping him to a crash seat. Jon nodded, though his armor's damage report was extensive. "I'm functional." He looked out at the receding planet. "But we just learned something important." "What's that?" "The Empire has weapons we can't counter with firepower alone. And if they're all like Vader," he paused, watching the two figures below begin their deadly dance. "We need allies. Fast." The Pelican broke atmosphere, climbing toward the Infinity's position. Behind them, on Tatooine's surface, blue and red lightsabers clashed in a confrontation that would decide whether an old Jedi's sacrifice would give the UNSC time to prepare for what came next. The Infinity's medical bay was a symphony of controlled chaos. Engineering crews worked on Master Chief's damaged MJOLNIR armor, cutting away sections that had been warped by Vader's force manipulation. Sparks flew as plasma torches freed him from components that had fused under stress. Dr. Tillman, the chief medical officer, ran scans with equipment designed to assess Spartan physiology, her expression tight with professional concern. "Hairline fractures in your left ulna and radius," she reported, studying the holographic skeletal display. "Severe bruising across your thoracic cavity. Your augmentations absorbed most of the damage, but Chief, whatever hit you," she trailed off, looking at the data that suggested crushing force applied from all directions simultaneously. "This shouldn't be possible without physical contact." "It's possible here," John said quietly. He stood in his tech suit, the black underlay that interfaced with his armor, watching technicians catalog the damage. His armor had taken worse during the war: plasma scarring, kinetic impacts, even a direct hit from a fuel rod cannon, but this was different. Vader had found weaknesses that shouldn't exist, exploiting the armor's own systems against itself. Captain Lasky entered the medical bay, his expression grave. "Chief. Glad you're back in one piece." He gestured toward the observation window where the armor reconstruction was taking place. "Roland's analyzing what happened down there. He's pulled data from your armor's black box, and," Lasky paused. "We need to talk." "Conference room." 5 minutes. The senior staff assembled quickly. This time, the holographic display showed footage from John's helmet cam, grainy but clear enough. They watched in silence as Vader lifted John off the ground with a gesture, as the Sith Lord deflected bullets with a glowing blade, as he manipulated objects through empty air like a puppet master commanding invisible strings. When the footage ended, Dr. Glassman spoke first. "That's impossible. There's no mechanism, no energy signature, no radiation, nothing on our sensors that explains what we just watched." "And yet it happened," Dr. Halsey's voice came through the comm, clinical and fascinated. "This force operates outside conventional physics as we understand them. A field that responds to consciousness, to will. It's not technology, it's something else entirely." Roland's avatar flickered to life. "I've been analyzing Imperial communications we intercepted. The force is central to their galactic history. An ancient order called the Jedi once numbered in the thousands, peacekeepers who could manipulate this energy. The Empire hunted them to near extinction. Vader himself is apparently a fallen Jedi, trained in their arts before turning to what they call the dark side." Commander Palmer leaned forward. "So how do we fight it?" Chief went toe-to-toe with this guy and barely made it out. "If there are more like Vader." "There aren't many," Roland interrupted. "That's the good news. Force-sensitive individuals are rare, maybe 1 in a million births. The Empire has Vader, the Emperor himself, and a group called Inquisitors. The Rebellion has, well, apparently almost no one. The Jedi are gone. Which creates an opportunity," Lasky said slowly. All eyes turned to him. "Think about it. We arrive in this galaxy with technology that's centuries ahead in some areas, centuries behind in others. The Empire sees us as a threat to be neutralized or a resource to be exploited. But the Rebellion," he pulled up a new display, a star chart showing known Rebel Alliance activity zones. "They're fighting a losing war against overwhelming odds. They need allies. We need information, resources, and a way to repair our slipspace drive." John understood immediately where this was going. "You want to contact the Rebellion." "I want to explore the option," Lasky corrected. "We're not picking sides in someone else's civil war. But if the Empire sent Vader after us based on one encounter, they're not going to stop. We need friends, Chief. Or at least people who won't shoot us on sight." Dr. Halsey's voice cut through with characteristic bluntness. "Captain, you're proposing an alliance with insurgents fighting a galaxy-spanning empire. The strategic implications are that we're one ship with 17,000 crew and no way home," Lasky said firmly. "I'm not asking permission, Doctor. I'm informing you of my decision. The question is how we make contact without walking into another fight. The man from the cantina, John said. Everyone looked at him. The smuggler. Solo. He mentioned Princess Leia, said she leads the rebellion. If we can find him. Already on it, Roland interjected, his avatar smirking. I tracked the Millennium Falcon, that's his ship, leaving Tatooine 3 hours ago. Sloppy sensor discipline for a smuggler. They're heading toward, interesting. The Alderaan system. Or what's left of it. The room went quiet. Alderaan, the planet the Empire had destroyed. John had processed that information tactically on Tatooine, but now the full weight of it settled. An entire world. Billions of lives. Erased as a demonstration of power. We follow them, Lasky decided. Discreetly. If Solo is connected to the rebellion, he'll lead us to them eventually. In the meantime, we continue repairs and stay off the Empire's sensors. Roland, what's our status? Slipspace drive is still completely offline. Dr. Glassman's team estimates 6 weeks minimum before we even attempt a test jump, and that's assuming we can synthesize the exotic matter we need without UNSC manufacturing facilities. Conventional systems are at 70%. Shields are functional. Mac cannons fully operational. We can fight, but we can't run. 6 weeks. In hostile territory. With the Empire actively searching for them. John ran the tactical scenarios automatically. Every day they remained in this galaxy, the odds of detection increased. And if the Empire committed significant forces, even Infinity's superior technology would eventually be overwhelmed by sheer numbers. There's something else, Roland continued, his tone shifting to serious. I've been monitoring Imperial military channels. There's chatter about moving a significant asset to the Outer Rim. They're calling it Project Stardust. Based on coded references and ship movements, I think it might be that planet-killing weapon Solo mentioned. The Death Star, Palmer said. A space station that can destroy planets. And they're moving it toward our operational area. Lasky stood, his decision made. Then we move faster. Chief, how long until your armor is operational? 4 hours. Make it 3. I need you to take a team and shadow Solo. If he makes contact with the rebellion, I want you there to open negotiations. Make it clear we're not their enemy, but we're not their weapon either. The UNSC doesn't work for anyone. John nodded. Understood. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Halsey requested a private channel with John. Her holographic avatar appeared on his datapad, older now, her eyes carrying the weight of decades manipulating Spartan programs and wrestling with the ethics of creating child soldiers. John, be careful. This force ability Vader demonstrated, it's not just physical manipulation. From what I'm seeing in the data, it affects minds as well. Persuasion, illusion, reading thoughts. Your Spartan conditioning provides some resistance, but it's not foolproof. I'll adapt, John said simply. I know you will. You always do. But John, she paused, unusual for someone who calculated every word. This galaxy operates on rules we don't understand. There's mysticism here that conflicts with everything we know about physics and reality. Don't assume your training applies. Don't assume you can win through strength and tactics alone. Then what do I use? Halsey smiled faintly. What you've always used. Luck. 3 hours later, Master Chief stood in the hangar bay in fully repaired armor, his shields at full charge, a fresh loadout mag locked to his back and thighs. Spartans Thorne, Grant, and Madsen had been joined by 2 more, Spartan Osiris team leader Jameson Locke and specialist Holly Tanaka. 5 Spartans in a stealth-configured Pelican, running dark to avoid Imperial sensors. The plan was simple, follow the Millennium Falcon to wherever Solo was headed, observe from distance, and make contact only if rebellion forces appeared. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Information gathering only. Chief, Lasky's voice came through the private command channel. The rebellion doesn't know we exist. The Empire thinks we're hostile aliens with dangerous technology. Every faction in this galaxy is going to look at us and make assumptions. Whatever you say, whatever you do out there, you're defining how the UNSC is seen in this galaxy. No pressure. John allowed himself the smallest smile, though his helmet hid it. I've had harder jobs. Name one. Surviving training with Mendez. Lasky actually laughed, and the tension broke slightly. Bring everyone home, Chief. And try not to start an interstellar incident. The Pelican launched silently, its active camouflage rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. They slipped away from the Infinity, a ghost ship following a ghost ship through a galaxy that had no idea humanity had arrived. Inside the troop bay, the Spartans checked weapons and reviewed what little intelligence they had on the rebellion. It wasn't much, a decentralized resistance movement, poorly equipped compared to the Empire, led by former Republic senators and idealists who still believed in democracy. They'd scored a major victory recently, destroying something called the Death Star, but the Empire's retaliation had been brutal. Hundreds of rebel cells crushed. Thousands executed. These rebels, Tanaka said, her voice thoughtful. They're fighting for freedom against tyranny. Sounds familiar. Insurrection fought for independence too, Locke countered. Didn't make them right. Didn't make ONI's response wrong. War isn't about good and evil, it's about survival and which side achieves their objectives. Vader wasn't fighting for objectives, John said quietly. He was enforcing absolute control through fear. There's a difference. The Pelican's AI chimed softly. Contact. Millennium Falcon dropping out of hyperspace ahead. Unknown star system. Multiple signatures, Rebel Alliance transponder codes. Looks like we found them. Through the viewport, the stars shifted as they entered real space. What they saw made even hardened Spartans pause. A fleet. Not massive by UNSC standards, maybe 30 capital ships, various sizes and designs, but organized and combat-ready. Corvettes, frigates, converted civilian vessels bristling with weapons. And in the center, a distinctive ship, Mon Calamari design, its organic curves marked with Rebel Alliance insignia. That's the home one, Roland's voice transmitted from the Infinity. Admiral Akbar's flagship. Chief, you're looking at the rebellion's primary fleet concentration. This is their leadership. The Millennium Falcon was docking with the home one. Somewhere on that ship, Solo was meeting with Rebel Command. And possibly Princess Leia herself. Orders, Chief. Grant asked. John watched the fleet through the viewport, calculating approach vectors, defensive capabilities, tactical responses if this went wrong. The UNSC could obliterate this entire fleet in 15 minutes. These people had no idea what level of technology they were looking at. But they also had no idea that potential allies had just arrived. Take us in, John ordered. Slow approach. Broadcast on all rebel frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves. What do we tell them? Thorne asked. John thought about Earth, about humanity's centuries of war and survival, about the Covenant and the Flood and every threat that had tried to extinguish his species. And he thought about what Captain Keyes had once told him, sometimes the best weapon is the truth. Tell them we're the UNSC, John said. Tell them we're far from home. And tell them we'd like to talk. The Pelican dropped its stealth camouflage and accelerated toward the fleet. On the home one, alarms began blaring as sensors detected an unknown craft approaching with technology that shouldn't exist. And in the command center, Princess Leia Organa looked up from a tactical briefing and said words that would echo through rebel history. What is that? The home one's combat information center erupted in controlled chaos the moment the unknown craft appeared on sensors. Rebel technicians shouted readings that made no sense, energy signatures off the scale, hull composition that defied analysis, propulsion systems that operated on principles their instruments couldn't identify. Admiral Akbar stood at the command station, his salmon-colored skin pale with concern, his large eyes fixed on the tactical display. Shields up. All batteries prepare to fire. Launch alert fighters. His voice carried the weight of decades commanding ships in impossible situations. Is it Imperial? Negative, sir, the sensor officer reported. No match to any Imperial signature. No match to anything in our database. It's Admiral, it's broadcasting on all our frequencies. Audio only. Play it. The message came through in clear basic, translated by Roland from the Pelican's computer. Rebel Alliance Fleet, this is Spartan 117 of the United Nations Space Command warship Infinity. We are not hostile. We seek diplomatic contact with your leadership. We are transmitting approach vector and request permission to dock. Silence filled the CIC. Every rebel officer exchanged glances that mixed confusion with suspicion. United Nations Space Command. No one had heard of such an organization. And the craft approaching, it was small, maybe 15 meters, but its energy output suggested technology generations ahead of even the Empire's most advanced prototypes. Princess Leia entered the CIC, her white robes flowing, her expression composed despite having just learned that an unknown alien vessel was approaching her fleet. Han Solo and Chewbacca followed close behind, the smuggler's hand resting on his blaster out of habit. Report, Leia commanded. Akbar gestured to the display. Unknown vessel, unknown origin, requesting to board. They claim to represent something called the United Nations Space Command. Princess, I recommend we deny docking and keep them at maximum weapons range until we understand what we're dealing with. Leia studied the sensor readings, her mind working through political calculations at light speed. The rebellion was desperate. After the Death Star's destruction, the Empire had responded with overwhelming force. They needed allies, resources, anything that might tip the scales. But inviting an unknown vessel aboard your flagship was how commanders got their entire leadership killed. What's their armament? She asked. Minimal visible weapons. One forward-mounted cannon, some kind of projectile launcher. But Princess, the sensor officer hesitated. There's something else. I'm detecting 5 life signs aboard. Human-sized, but their bio readings are enhanced somehow. Elevated bone density, augmented musculature, cybernetic integration. Whatever these beings are, they're not standard humans. Han stepped forward, his expression troubled. Leia, I saw one of them on Tatooine. Big guy, covered head to toe in armor that made stormtrooper gear look like children's toys. He went hand to hand with Vader. He let that sink in. And he survived. Every head turned toward him. Vader was the rebellion's nightmare, an unstoppable force who'd personally killed dozens of rebel leaders. The idea that someone had faced him in combat and lived was almost inconceivable. You saw this? Akbar asked. Before Kenobi showed up and gave us a distraction. This Spartan moved fast, hit hard, and his weapons, Han shook his head. They weren't blasters. Solid projectiles that punched through stormtrooper armor like it was paper. And when Vader tried that force choke thing, the guy just walked through it. Leia made her decision. Allow them to dock. Bay 7, it's isolated from the main ship. Security teams on full alert, with ion weapons in case they're droids. I'll meet them personally. Princess, that's inadvisable, Akbar protested. Let me send a delegation. If they wanted to destroy us, Admiral, they could have opened fire. They're asking permission to board. That suggests diplomacy, not aggression. Her eyes hardened. And if the Empire is hunting them, they might be exactly what we need. The Pelican settled onto the Home One's docking bay deck with hydraulic precision, its landing gear absorbing the impact with barely a sound. Around the bay, 24 rebel soldiers stood behind portable cover, their blaster rifles aimed at the craft. They were nervous. These were soldiers who'd faced Imperial walkers and survived, but something about this unknown vessel made their instincts scream danger. The Pelican's rear ramp lowered with a hiss of pressurizing atmosphere. Master Chief emerged first. Even prepared for it, the rebels weren't ready for what they saw. 7 feet of green and gold armor, every line of it designed for war, moving with a grace that betrayed the massive weight it must carry. His helmet was featureless except for a golden visor that reflected their own nervous faces back at them. No expression. No humanity visible. Just a walking weapon system. For more Spartans followed, their armor in varying colors, gray, white with red trim, burgundy, black. Each one carried weapons that looked heavy and brutal, mag-locked to their backs or held in ready positions. They moved in perfect tactical formation, covering angles, assessing threats, professional soldiers evaluating a potentially hostile environment. One of the rebel soldiers' rifles shook visibly. His squad leader put a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Hold fire. Let's see what they want. Princess Leia walked forward, her guards flanking her but following her lead. She stopped 10 meters from the Spartans, close enough to speak without shouting, far enough to retreat if necessary. Up close, these warriors were even more imposing. She could hear the faint hum of their armor's power systems, see the microscopic adjustments as their helmets tracked multiple targets simultaneously. "I am Princess Leia Organa of Alderaan," she said, her voice clear and authoritative. "Representing the Rebel Alliance against the Galactic Empire. You claim to be the United Nations Space Command. I've never heard of your government. Where do you come from?" Master Chief's external speakers activated, his voice resonating in the bay. "Farther than you'd believe, Princess. Different galaxy, different dimension. We didn't come here intentionally, our ship was damaged in transit. We're trying to find a way home. Different galaxy." The words hung in the air like an impossible riddle. Leia's political training kept her expression neutral, but internally she was reeling. Intergalactic travel was theoretical at best, and this warrior spoke of it as casually as discussing a hyperspace jump. "And yet the Empire attacked you," she observed. Admiral Akbar received reports, 3-star destroyers engaged and destroyed near Tatooine. Imperial casualties in the thousands. That doesn't sound like someone looking for a peaceful way home. "They fired first," John replied simply. "We defended ourselves." "With what? What kind of weapon destroys a star destroyer in a single shot?" "Kinetic energy. Magnetic acceleration. Basic physics applied at high velocity." John's tone suggested this was obvious. "Your ships don't have energy shielding. They're vulnerable to mass-based weapons." Behind Leia, one of the rebel engineers muttered, "Kinetic weapons at capital ship scale. That's brilliant. Why didn't we think of that?" "Because you developed energy weapons first and built your entire doctrine around them," Spartan Locke said, his voice analytical. "Different technological evolution. Your galaxy mastered hyperspace and energy manipulation. We mastered slipspace and kinetic systems. Neither is superior, just different approaches to the same problems." Leia processed this. These weren't conquerors, they were pragmatists. Soldiers doing their job with weapons their galaxy had never seen. "What do you want from the rebellion?" "Information," John said. "About this galaxy, its politics, its technology. We need to repair our ship and find a way home. In exchange, we're willing to share tactical intelligence about the Empire. We've fought them twice now. We know their capabilities. And their weaknesses? Some. Not all." Han Solo pushed forward, unable to contain himself. "You fought Vader. On Tatooine. I saw the aftermath, half the cantina destroyed, stormtroopers scattered like toys. How did you survive?" John turned his helmet toward Han, and even without seeing eyes, the smuggler felt evaluated, measured, assessed. "He's powerful. Fast. Can manipulate objects and people through this force ability. But he's not invincible. He bleeds. His technology can be damaged. And he's alone, one warrior, no matter how skilled, has limitations. You heard him? Leia asked, her interest sharpening. The rebellion had never successfully engaged Vader in direct combat. Every encounter ended with rebel casualties and Vader walking away unscathed. I hit him hard enough to stagger him. His armor is partially cybernetic, life support systems built into the chassis. Target those, you can slow him down. John's voice carried the weight of experience. But you'd need weapons that can penetrate his force defenses. Surprise. Speed. Overwhelming firepower before he can react. Akbar had been listening from the CIC, his voice coming through Leia's comlink. Princess, if what they're saying is true, if they have intelligence on Vader's vulnerabilities, this could change everything. Leia studied Master Chief, trying to read body language through armor that revealed nothing. This was a calculated risk. The rebellion needed every advantage they could get, and these UNSC soldiers offered knowledge the Empire didn't expect them to have. But alliances forged in desperation could turn poisonous. You said your ship is damaged. How badly? 6 weeks to repair our faster-than-light drive, if we can acquire the necessary materials. Until then, we're stuck in your galaxy. John's honesty was tactical, establishing trust required transparency. The Empire knows we're here. They'll keep hunting us. Which means eventually, they'll find your fleet if we lead them to you. Then we have a mutual problem, Leia said. The Empire hunts us both. And if what Han says is true, if you can fight Vader and survive, the Empire will commit significant resources to capturing or destroying you. She made her decision. Come aboard. We'll discuss this properly, away from the docking bay. If you're willing to share what you know about the Empire, we're willing to help you repair your ship. No formal alliance, John clarified. We're not joining your rebellion. But information exchange and mutual defense, that we can do. Leia extended her hand, a human gesture of agreement that transcended galaxies. Agreed. John looked at her hand for a moment, then reached out with his own armored gauntlet, dwarfing her fingers but gripping with careful, controlled pressure. The handshake lasted 2 seconds, and when they separated, both leaders knew they'd just changed the course of this war in ways neither fully understood. Follow me, Leia said. And Spartan 117. Call me Chief. Chief, then. Welcome to the rebellion. I hope we both survive long enough to regret this. As the Spartans followed Leia toward the interior of the Home One, Han sidled up next to Chewbacca. The Wookiee growled a question. Yeah, I know, Han muttered. We've got mysterious super soldiers from another galaxy, a princess making deals with warriors who fight Vader for fun, and somewhere out there, the Empire's probably building another Death Star. What could possibly go wrong? Chewbacca's answering growl suggested many things could go wrong. And deep in the ship, in the war room where rebel leadership gathered to plan impossible victories against overwhelming odds, Admiral Akbar was already calculating how to use this new variable to strike back at an empire that had never expected humanity's arrival. In another part of the galaxy, aboard an Imperial Star Destroyer, Darth Vader stood in his meditation chamber, the wound John had inflicted still aching beneath his armor. His breathing was labored, not from the injury but from the memory of facing a warrior who operated outside the Force, who resisted through technology and will. The Emperor's hologram appeared before him. Lord Vader. I sense you have encountered something unexpected. Yes, my master. A warrior from beyond our galaxy. His power comes not from the Force but from enhancement and armor. He struck me. Drew blood. Vader's mechanical voice carried an emotion rarely heard, respect. He is dangerous. Then he must be found, Palpatine hissed. And brought before me. If his technology can resist the Force, imagine what we could achieve with it. Find him, Lord Vader. Bring me this warrior and his ship. As you wish, my master. The hologram faded, and Vader returned to his meditation, his mind already planning the next confrontation. The warrior had escaped once. He would not do so again. The hunt had truly begun. The war room aboard the Home One was a testament to the rebellion's desperate circumstances. Star charts covered every wall, red markers indicating Imperial strongholds, blue showing rebel safe zones that shrank with each passing week. The holographic projector at the room's center displayed the galaxy in miniature, a three-dimensional reminder of how vast their enemy's reach was and how small their resistance remained. Master Chief stood at the table alongside Spartans Locke and Tanaka, their armor drawing curious and nervous glances from the rebel officers filing in. Princess Leia took her position at the head of the table, flanked by Admiral Akbar and General Riken, the Alliance's senior military commander. Han Solo leaned against the back wall, arms crossed, watching with the skeptical eye of someone who'd seen too many alliances fall apart. Let's establish baseline understanding, Leia began, activating the projector. The galaxy rotated slowly, thousands of systems glowing like distant stars. This is our situation. The Galactic Empire controls approximately 70% of populated systems. They have unlimited resources, millions of soldiers, thousands of capital ships. We have, significantly less. She gestured to the scattered blue markers. 36 major cells, maybe 50,000 active fighters, a fleet that's held together with hope and spare parts. And yet you destroyed their superweapon, Chief observed. The Death Star. That's not a small victory. It cost us everything, General Riken said, his voice heavy. The Empire's retaliation was immediate and brutal. They've crushed 12 cells in the past month alone. Alderaan was destroyed as a demonstration of power, Princess Leia's home world, 2 billion people, erased in seconds to break our morale. Chief processed this. Strategic genocide as psychological warfare. The Covenant had done similar things, glassing human colonies not for tactical advantage but to inspire terror. It was a strategy that revealed weakness as much as strength. Fear-based control has limits. Push hard enough, and resistance becomes preferable to submission. Easier said than done when the Empire can crack planets, Han interjected. They're building another Death Star, or something like it. Intelligence suggests they've learned from the first one's weaknesses. Next time, we might not get lucky. Leia turned to Chief. Which brings us to you. You claim to have fought the Empire twice and survived. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Your ship, this Infinity, what are its capabilities? Chief glanced at Locke, who nodded. Some information had to be shared to build trust. 5.7 kilometers long. Crew of 17,000. Primary weapons are magnetic accelerator cannons that fire tungsten slugs 10 slugs at 4% light speed. Secondary weapons include missile batteries, point defense systems, and a complement of fighters and dropships. Defensive systems include energy shielding that regenerates under fire. The rebel officers exchanged stunned looks. Akbar's translator had trouble processing 4% light speed in reference to projectile weapons. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone. Fusion reactors, Tanaka explained. Multiple redundant power systems. Our technology developed differently than yours. We focused on kinetic weapons because our primary enemy, the Covenant, had energy shielding that could absorb plasma but was vulnerable to mass-based impacts. The Covenant? Leia asked. An alliance of alien species that tried to exterminate humanity, Chief said flatly. 30 years of war. Hundreds of colonies destroyed. We survived by adapting faster than they expected. Superior tactics, willingness to sacrifice, and weapons designed to counter their advantages. The room went quiet. These warriors weren't theoretical, they'd fought an extinction war and won. That changed the calculus of everything. And Vader? Leia pressed. You engaged him directly. Tell us what you learned. Chief pulled up his armor's recorded footage on his datapad, interfacing it with the rebel holographic system. The recording played, Vader lifting Chief with the Force, deflecting bullets with a lightsaber, the brutal hand-to-hand exchange in the cantina. Rebel officers watched in fascinated horror as Chief punched Vader hard enough to stagger him, as the Sith Lord manipulated objects through telekinesis, as they grappled in a contest of technology versus mystical power. When the footage ended, General Rekin spoke first. You hit him. In 20 years of hunting rebels, no one's ever reported landing a solid hit on Vader. He wasn't expecting kinetic force from someone who could resist his telekinesis, Chief explained. My armor's powered systems and my augmented strength let me operate in his force grip longer than he anticipated. But he adapted quickly. Started targeting my armor's systems directly, overloading circuits through precise manipulation. If the fight had continued, he would have disabled me. But you escaped, Akbar noted. With assistance from Obi-Wan Kenobi. That raises questions. How did a hermit Jedi happen to be present during your encounter? He sensed something, Chief said. Told me I existed outside the Force, like a void. That seems to have drawn his attention. Leia leaned forward, her expression intense. Chief, do you understand what that means? The Force connects all living things, it's the foundation of Jedi and Sith power. If you and your people exist outside it, if you can resist Force abilities through your technology, she looked around the table. The Empire's greatest advantage has always been Vader and the Emperor's Force abilities. If we had soldiers who could counter that. No, Chief said firmly. We're not becoming your anti-Vader task force. We have one objective, repair our ship and find a way home. We'll share tactical intelligence and defend ourselves if attacked, but the UNSC doesn't fight other people's wars. Even against an empire that commits genocide. Leia's voice carried challenge and desperation in equal measure. You've seen what they're capable of. You fought their enforcers. How can you stand aside? Chief's response was measured, the product of 3 decades following orders even when they haunted him. Because we've learned the cost of intervention. We've made mistakes, supported regimes that turned tyrannical, crushed rebellions that had legitimate grievances, sacrificed civilians for strategic advantage. We don't have moral authority to judge your galaxy's conflicts. But you have the power to change them, General Rekin said quietly. One ship that can destroy Star Destroyers in single shots. Soldiers who can fight Vader hand to hand. Technology we can barely comprehend. You could turn this war around. Or make it worse, Locke interjected. Introduce UNSC weapons technology into this galaxy, and you'll escalate the conflict beyond anything you've seen. The Empire will reverse engineer our systems, build their own versions. Your civil war becomes an arms race that kills billions. The room fell into uncomfortable silence. These Spartans weren't naive idealists, they were hardened warriors who understood the law of unintended consequences. Han broke the tension. So what, you're just going to sit in orbit for 6 weeks fixing your ship while the Empire hunts you? Because I guarantee they won't leave you alone. Vader's probably already tracking you. Which is why we need your help, Chief admitted. We need materials to repair our slipspace drive, exotic matter, rare elements. We need intelligence on Imperial fleet movements so we can avoid them. And we need a safe location where the Infinity can complete repairs without constant attack. Leia saw the opening. Then let's make a deal. You share your tactical analysis of the Empire, their ships, weapons, Vader's capabilities. You allow our engineers to study your technology, not to copy it, but to understand it. And if the Empire attacks while you're in our space, you help defend rebel assets. In exchange? Chief asked. We provide the materials you need. We shield your ship from Imperial sensors using our safe zones. And when you leave, we ask only that you remember there was a rebellion here that fought for freedom against impossible odds. Leia's voice softened. We're not asking you to win our war, Chief. Just help us survive long enough to win it ourselves. Chief looked at his fellow Spartans. Locke gave a slight nod. Tanaka's helmet tilted in agreement. They were soldiers. Helping others defend themselves was something they understood, even if directly fighting wasn't their mission. Agreed, Chief said. But we establish clear boundaries. The Infinity remains under UNSC command. We don't participate in offensive operations against the Empire. And if we find a way home, we take it immediately, regardless of the tactical situation here. Understood, Leia said. She extended her hand again, and this time Chief shook it without hesitation. Admiral Akbar activated a new display, showing a remote star system in the outer rim. We have a base on Hoth, ice planet, minimal life, naturally shielded from most sensors. We're establishing our main headquarters there. If your ship can reach it, you could complete repairs under our protection. We'll need to verify the location security, Locke said. Run our own sensor sweeps, establish defensive perimeters. Of course. We'll provide all relevant intelligence. Akbar studied the Spartans with his large eyes. I must ask, how many of you are there? How many warriors like you does the UNSC have? Spartans are rare, Chief said, offering truth without specifics. Thousands across the UNSC, not millions. We're special operations, deployed for high-value targets and impossible missions. But we're supported by conventional forces. Marines, ODSTs, naval personnel. The Infinity carries a full military complement. And your weapons? General Riken asked. Could we manufacture them? Even simple ballistic weapons would give us an edge. Tanaka fielded this one. Your manufacturing base is different from ours. You'd need to completely retool your production facilities, and even then, creating functional mech systems requires precision engineering and power generation you don't currently have. Small arms, maybe, but even those would take years to reverse engineer properly. We don't have years, Leia said quietly. The Empire grows stronger every day. Their new Death Star could be operational within months. Chief recognized the desperation in her voice. He'd heard it before, from UNSC commanders facing Covenant fleets, from colonists watching their worlds burn. Desperation led to bad decisions, to alliances that cost more than they saved. Then focus on what you can change. Imperial tactics, not their technology. Vader's predictable, he leads from the front, uses fear as a weapon. That creates opportunities. Their star destroyers have exposed bridges and vulnerable engine sections. Their stormtroopers are trained for intimidation, not actual combat effectiveness. You learned all this from 2 engagements? Akbar asked, impressed. We learned it from 30 years fighting enemies who were technologically superior. You find weaknesses, exploit them, adapt faster than your opponent expects. Chief pulled up tactical schematics on his datapad. Your fighters are good, X-Wings and Y-Wings have agility Imperial ties can't match. Use that. Hit and fade. Never engage in direct fleet combat where numbers overwhelm you. For the next hour, the Spartans and rebel leadership exchanged information. Chief walked them through the Battle of Tatooine from a tactical perspective, highlighting Imperial response times, communication vulnerabilities, command structure rigidity. In exchange, the rebels provided star charts, Imperial fleet disposition reports, and intelligence on Vader's known operational patterns. By the end, both sides had gained something valuable. The rebels had insight into an enemy they'd fought for years but never truly understood, and the UNSC had allies who could navigate a galaxy they knew nothing about. As the meeting broke up, Han approached Chief. Question: when you fought Vader, did you feel anything? Fear, anger, pressure on your mind? Chief considered this. He tried to crush my throat using telekinesis. I felt physical pressure but nothing mental. That's the Force. He can get inside your head, make you see things that aren't there, feel emotions that aren't yours. Most people can't resist it. Han looked at Chief's armor thoughtfully. But you did. Either that armor's shielding you somehow, or you're just too stubborn to be mind-controlled. Both, probably, Chief admitted. Han laughed. I like you, Spartan. You're honest. Dangerous, but honest. He lowered his voice. Word of advice, Leia's desperate. The rebellion's hanging by a thread, and you represent hope. She's going to push you to do more than you agreed to. Don't let her guilt you into fighting her war. You've got your own people to protect. I know, Chief said. But if the Empire comes after the Infinity while we're repairing, we'll defend ourselves. And if rebels are nearby when that happens, you'll end up in the fight whether you want to or not, Han finished. Yeah. That's what I figured. Just be ready, this galaxy has a way of dragging people into conflicts they didn't choose. Chief watched as the rebel officers filed out, already discussing how to integrate the intelligence they'd gained into their operational planning. He thought about Captain Lasky waiting aboard the Infinity, about 17,000 crew members depending on decisions made in rooms like this, about a galaxy far from home where the rules were different but the stakes were exactly the same. Spartans never died, the saying went. They were just missing in action. But what happened when the missing ended up somewhere they couldn't come back from? 3 weeks passed in an uneasy alliance that neither side fully trusted but both desperately needed. The UNSC Infinity had relocated to the Hoth system, settling into a high orbit above the ice planet where the rebellion was establishing Echo Base. The ship's engineers worked around the clock on the slip space drive, fabricating components from materials the rebels scavenged from a dozen systems. It was delicate work, Forerunner technology didn't respond well to improvisation, and Dr. Glassman's team had to redesign entire subsystems using elements that didn't exist in UNSC databases. Master Chief spent those weeks doing what Spartans did best, preparing for the inevitable fight. He ran reconnaissance across Hoth's surface, mapping defensive positions, identifying choke points where Imperial walkers could be stopped. He trained with rebel soldiers, teaching them hand-to-hand techniques that didn't rely on the Force, showing them how to fight enemies who could see the future. And he studied the galaxy he'd landed in, learning its history, its factions, the 1,000-year conflict between Jedi and Sith that had shaped everything. On the 19th day, Roland's voice crackled through Chief's helmet comm as he stood on Hoth's frozen plains, watching a rebel transport land with supplies. Chief, we've got a problem. Captain wants you back on the Infinity immediately. John didn't waste words. Incoming. Worse. Intelligence. The Empire knows we're here. The Infinity's bridge was tense when Chief arrived. Captain Lasky stood at the command table, holographic displays showing Imperial fleet movements across multiple sectors. The pattern was unmistakable, star destroyers converging on the outer rim, tightening a noose around known rebel space. They're hunting us, Lasky said without preamble. Or more accurately, they're hunting everyone in this region, knowing we're hidden somewhere in it. Vader's leading the search personally. 3 weeks passed in an uneasy alliance that neither side fully trusted but both desperately needed. The UNSC Infinity had relocated to the Hoth system, settling into a high orbit above the ice planet where the rebellion was establishing Echo Base. The ship's engineers worked around the clock on the slip space drive, fabricating components from materials the rebels scavenged from a dozen systems. It was delicate work, Forerunner technology didn't respond well to improvisation, and Dr. Glassman's team had to redesign entire subsystems using elements that didn't exist in UNSC databases. Master Chief spent those weeks doing what Spartans did best, preparing for the inevitable fight. He ran reconnaissance across Hoth's surface, mapping defensive positions, identifying choke points where Imperial walkers could be stopped. He trained with rebel soldiers, teaching them hand-to-hand techniques that didn't rely on the Force, showing them how to fight enemies who could see the future. And he studied the galaxy he'd landed in, learning its history, its factions, the 1,000-year conflict between Jedi and Sith that had shaped everything. On the 19th day, Roland's voice crackled through Chief's helmet comm as he stood on Hoth's frozen plains, watching a rebel transport land with supplies. Chief, we've got a problem. Captain wants you back on the Infinity immediately. John didn't waste words. Incoming. Worse. Intelligence. The Empire knows we're here. The Infinity's bridge was tense when Chief arrived. Captain Lasky stood at the command table, holographic displays showing Imperial fleet movements across multiple sectors. The pattern was unmistakable, Star Destroyers converging on the outer rim, tightening a noose around known rebel space. "They're hunting us," Lasky said without preamble. Or more accurately, they're hunting everyone in this region, knowing we're hidden somewhere in it. Vader's leading the search personally. He's systematically checking every system, destroying any rebel presence he finds. "How long until they reach Hoth?" Chief asked. 3 days, maybe 4. We could run, but our slipspace drive isn't ready for testing. Even if we got it online, attempting a jump without proper calibration could tear us apart or strand us in slipspace permanently. Lasky's expression was grim. "We're trapped, Chief. And we've trapped the rebellion with us." Roland's avatar materialized, his usual confidence replaced by calculation. "I've been analyzing Imperial search patterns. They're not random, Vader's using the Force to guide his fleet. He can sense disturbances, anomalies. And apparently, a 5-kilometer warship from another galaxy registers as a pretty big anomaly." "Options?" Chief asked. "Fight or hide? We can't run." Lasky pulled up tactical projections. "If we fight, we win. The Empire's sending 6 Star Destroyers, significant force, but nothing the Infinity can't handle. We've got Mach cannons, superior shields, fighters that outclass TIE interceptors in every metric. We could destroy their fleet before they knew what hit them. But..." Chief heard the unspoken complication. "But Vader's on the lead destroyer. And if we obliterate 6 Imperial capital ships, we're not observers anymore, we're combatants. The Empire will commit everything to destroying us. We'll be fighting a galaxy-wide military while stuck in one location." Lasky looked at Chief directly. "I'm not asking permission to engage. I'm stating fact, if we fight, we commit the UNSC to this war completely." Chief processed the variables. Tactical victory versus strategic disaster. Defending themselves versus escalating into full-scale conflict. Protecting 17,000 crew members versus abandoning allies who'd helped them. What does Princess Leia say? She's evacuating Echo Base. Moving personnel and equipment to transports, preparing to scatter across the outer rim if Vader finds them. She's given us an option: we can leave orbit, lead the Imperial fleet away from Hoth. Sacrifice ourselves to save the rebellion. That's not happening, Chief said immediately. Agreed. But we need a third option. Lasky zoomed in on Hoth's system. What if we don't hide and don't run? What if we make Vader come to us on our terms? Chief understood instantly. Ambush. Exactly. The Empire expects rebels, poorly armed insurgents with outdated ships. They don't expect military-grade tactics from a force that's fought 30 years of war. We use Hoth's terrain. Position our forces where their advantages don't matter and ours do. Roland highlighted locations across Hoth's surface and orbit. We station longsword fighters in the asteroid field. Hide pelicans in the ice canyons with Spartan boarding teams. Put the Infinity in low orbit where the planet blocks long-range sensors. When Vader arrives, we let him commit to the attack, then hit him from angles he doesn't expect. And when he uses the Force? Chief asked. When he starts manipulating our systems or crushing pilots from across space. That's where you come in, Lasky said. You fought him. You know his capabilities. If we're doing this, if we're making a stand, I need you to face Vader again. Draw him into close combat where the Force matters less than tactics and firepower. Chief was silent for 10 seconds, running scenarios. Vader was more dangerous now, he'd studied the Infinity's capabilities, adapted his approach. But that meant Chief had adapted too. He'd watched the helmet cam footage 100 times, analyzed every move, every force technique. He knew Vader's patterns, his preferences, the way he used fear as a weapon. I'll need a team. Full Spartan complement, Palmer's fire team, Osiris, every Spartan on the Infinity. And I'll need rebel coordination. Leia's soldiers know this terrain. We use their knowledge with our equipment. Lasky nodded. I'll arrange it. But Chief, this stops being reconnaissance the moment we engage. Once we fight, we can't pretend we're neutral. We stopped being neutral when the Empire attacked us at Tatooine, Chief replied. We've just been delaying the inevitable. The War Council convened in Echo Base's command center, a converted ice cavern deep beneath Hoth's surface. Princess Leia stood beside Master Chief, her white cold-weather gear contrasting with his green armor. Around them gathered rebel commanders, UNSC officers via hologram from the Infinity, and a dozen Spartans who'd become uncomfortably familiar faces to the rebellion. The Empire will be here in 72 hours, Leia began. Admiral Akbar is leading our fleet to a fallback position, but most of our ground forces are here. If Vader lands on Hoth, we can't stop him through conventional means. We don't fight conventionally, Commander Palmer said. She activated a tactical display showing Hoth's geography. The Empire uses walkers, massive four-legged vehicles designed to intimidate and crush resistance. They're effective against fixed positions, but they're slow and vulnerable to coordinated strikes. General Riken studied the display skeptically. We've encountered ATS before. Our artillery barely scratches them. Cable tactics work, but they require pilots willing to get within meters of those things, and even then, you only disable one walker at a time. Your artillery uses energy weapons, Spartan Thorn interjected. Designed to burn through armor. But these walkers have heavy plating, energy dissipates. What you need is penetration. He pulled up schematics of UNSC weapons. M41 rocket launchers. Shoulder-fired, high-explosive anti-tank rounds. They punch through armor and detonate inside the target. 2 shots to the neck joint, 1 walker down. And you have these weapons? Leia asked. We have 40 launchers aboard the Infinity, Chief said. We can arm your best soldiers, give them a fighting chance against Imperial armor. But that's defense. We need offense. He manipulated the hologram, showing the system's asteroid field. Vader will come in with his fleet in standard Imperial formation, Star Destroyers in a wedge, TIE fighters screening. They'll expect orbital bombardment to soften defenses before landing troops. We don't let them get that far. Captain Lasky's hologram spoke from the Infinity. The moment they enter the system, we hit them with MAC rounds. Long-range precision strikes on their lead destroyers before they can bring weapons to bear. Infinity's shields can absorb return fire while we eliminate their capital ships. But Vader won't be on those ships, Han Solo interjected from his position near the back. He'd stayed on Hoth, claiming he owed Leia that much even if it was suicidal. He'll sense the trap. Use the Force to anticipate your attack. He'll sense hostile intent, Chief corrected. But he can't predict technology he doesn't understand. He's never faced MAC cannons. Never fought an enemy who operates outside the Force. His precognition has limits. And if he boards your ship? Leia asked. If he brings stormtroopers and uses the Force to breach your hull? Then we're ready, Commander Palmer said with grim satisfaction. Last time, he faced 5 Spartans in a cantina. This time, he'll face 50 in a ship designed for repelling boarding actions. Bulkheads that lock down on command. Gravity plating we can manipulate. Atmosphere we can vent. And Spartans in every corridor with weapons that can crack starship armor. Chief saw the fear and hope mixing in Leia's expression. The rebellion had fought for years without a real victory against Vader, every encounter ended with casualties and defeat. The idea that someone could not just survive him but actively hunt him was almost too much to believe. There's one more element, Chief said quietly. Vader's hunting us because he senses something wrong in the Force, a void where we exist. If I go planetside during the attack, he'll follow. Leave his fleet, come after me personally. You want to use yourself as bait, Leia said, understanding immediately. I want to fight him where his advantages are minimized. On Hoth's surface, in ice storms that limit visibility, with terrain that disrupts his precognition. Close quarters where speed and strength matter more than mystical power. Chief's tone carried absolute certainty. He's dangerous, but he's not unstoppable. He bleeds. His armor has weaknesses. And I've had 3 weeks to learn everything the rebellion knows about fighting Force users. That's suicide, General Rekin said flatly. Vader has killed Jedi Masters. Warriors trained from birth in the Force. What makes you think you can succeed where they failed? Because I'm not a Jedi, Chief replied. I don't rely on the Force. I don't have philosophical constraints about using overwhelming firepower. And I'm not fighting him to defeat the darkness or restore balance, I'm fighting him to protect my crew and give the Infinity time to complete repairs. The room fell silent. These rebels had spent years watching heroes die fighting Vader, watching hope get crushed under black boots and mechanical breathing. But this Spartan spoke with the confidence of someone who'd faced worse and survived. Leia made her decision. We coordinate the defense. UNSC handles orbital combat. Rebellion handles ground operations. And Chief, she met his visor with eyes that had watched a planet die. Kill him. If you get the chance, don't hesitate. Vader has murdered thousands. One more death on your conscience is worth the lives you'll save. Chief didn't respond to that. Killing wasn't about conscience, it was about mission completion. If Vader had to die to protect the Infinity, then Vader would die. Simple tactical calculation. The planning session continued for 6 hours. Weapons distribution. Defensive positions. Evacuation protocols. Coordination between UNSC and rebel forces who'd never fought together. It was messy, improvised, held together by desperation and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. As the meeting broke up, Han approached Chief. You really think you can take Vader? I think I can survive long enough to complete the mission, Chief corrected. That's not exactly confidence-inspiring. It's realistic. War isn't about confidence, it's about achieving objectives despite the odds. Chief checked his motion tracker, a habit that had kept him alive through countless battles. You should evacuate with the others. This isn't your fight. That's what I keep telling myself, Han said with a wry smile. And yet here I am, frozen on an ice planet, waiting to get killed by a dark sorcerer and his army of plastic soldiers. Leia's got me doing crazy things. Chief recognized the sentiment. Loyalty made people take irrational risks. He'd seen Marines charge Covenant positions to save wounded comrades. Watched ODSTs hold impossible lines so civilians could evacuate. Sometimes the irrational was what separated humans from machines. 72 hours, Chief said. After that, this all comes down to who adapts faster, us or the Empire. Han looked up at the ice ceiling, imagining the stars beyond where fleets were converging. I've got a bad feeling about this. Chief had heard that sentiment before, usually right before things went catastrophically wrong. But Spartans didn't operate on feelings, they operated on training, preparation, and the cold mathematics of warfare. Vader was coming. The UNSC was ready. And in 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when an empire built on fear met warriors who'd survived extinction. The Imperial fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Hoth system with the precision of an empire that had conquered thousands of worlds. 6-star destroyers emerged in perfect formation, the Executor-class Super-Star Destroyer Executor leading, flanked by 5 standard Imperial-class vessels. TIE fighters launched immediately, their distinctive screaming engines filling the void as they formed defensive screens. On the bridge of the Executor, Darth Vader stood motionless, his presence dominating the room more effectively than any words. Officers moved with nervous efficiency around him, knowing that failure in Lord Vader's presence was often fatal. Admiral Ozzel, the fleet commander, stood at a respectful distance, studying sensor displays. "My lord, we've detected the rebel base on the 6th planet. Hoth. Energy readings consistent with shield generators and defensive installations." Ozzel's voice carried the confidence of someone who'd crushed dozens of rebel cells. "We can begin orbital bombardment within the hour. They have nowhere to run." Vader turned slowly, his mask reflecting the blue glow of the tactical displays. "You have failed me for the last time, Admiral." His hand rose, fingers curling slightly. Ozzel's hands went to his throat as invisible force crushed his windpipe. He gasped, staggered, and collapsed to the deck as bridge officers looked away, focusing intently on their stations. Vader released his grip, and Ozzel's body went still. "Captain Piett," Vader's mechanical voice echoed. "You are now Admiral. Do not disappoint me." Piett, pale but composed, stepped forward. "Yes, my lord." "What are your orders?" "I sense something," Vader said, turning toward the viewport. "A disturbance. The void I encountered on Tatooine, it is here. The alien warrior and his ship." His breathing deepened, and even through the mask, anticipation was evident. "Prepare a boarding party. I will take the warrior alive and present him to the Emperor." "My lord, sensors detect no vessels beyond standard rebel signatures." Vader's hand moved, and a nearby console exploded in sparks. "Do not presume to tell me what the Force reveals. The ship is here. Hidden. Waiting." He turned back to Piett. "Advance the fleet. Draw them out. And prepare my shuttle, I will lead the ground assault personally." As the Imperial fleet began its approach to Hoth, none of the officers noticed the anomalous readings hidden in the asteroid field. Energy signatures disguised as background radiation. Metal shapes too angular to be natural rock. And above the planet, in low orbit where the ice world's magnetic field distorted sensors, something massive waited in absolute silence. In the Infinity's CIC, Captain Lasky watched the Imperial fleet approach with the calm of a commander who'd orchestrated ambushes against superior Covenant forces. His crew was at battle stations, every system primed, every weapon loaded and targeting solutions locked. "Range to lead destroyer?" he asked. 400,000 kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Dominique reported. "They're maintaining standard formation. No indication they've detected us. Mac cannons 1 through 6, prepare to fire on my mark. Roland, I want targeting solutions on their command bridges and engine sections. We disable, not destroy, give their crews time to evacuate if possible." Roland's avatar nodded, unusually serious. "Solutions locked. But Captain, Vader's on that lead ship. If we hit the Executor's bridge." "We follow the plan," Lasky said firmly. "Chief wants Vader planetside where he can engage him on our terms. We make that happen." He opened a channel to the fighter wings. "All longsword squadrons, prepare for launch. Remember, TIE fighters are fast but fragile. Don't dogfight if you can avoid it. Use superior firepower and shields to your advantage." Across the Infinity, pilots strapped into their longswords, Spartans checked their weapons one final time, and Marines manned boarding defense stations. They'd fought the Covenant, the Flood, the Prometheans. An empire with primitive technology and mystical warriors was just another enemy. But in the hangar bay, Master Chief stood with Commander Palmer and 24 other Spartans, preparing to deploy to Hoth's surface. Their mission was simple and suicidal: draw Vader away from the fleet battle and engage him where the UNSC's advantages mattered most. "Chief," Palmer said, checking her BR-85 for the third time. "When you say, engage Vader, you mean we're actually going to try to kill him, right? Not capture, not negotiate, kill." "If possible," Chief replied. But our primary objective is keeping him away from the Infinity. If he boards while we're fighting his fleet, he could do catastrophic damage from inside. So we're bait, Spartan Thorn observed. We're the anvil, Chief corrected. The fleet's the hammer. Vader's caught between. He activated his comm, speaking to all the Spartans. Rules of engagement, do not underestimate him. He's faster than he looks, stronger than baseline human, and he can kill from range using telekinesis. Maintain spacing, if he gets one of us, the others keep firing. Concentrate fire on his armor's life support systems. And remember, he's fought Jedi. He hasn't fought Spartans. The Pelicans launched from the Infinity's bay, dropping toward Hoth's surface in a tight formation. Through the viewport, Chief could see Echo Base's defensive trenches, rebel soldiers manning turrets and artillery positions. It looked primitive compared to UNSC fortifications, but there was determination in how they prepared. These people had been losing for years and still fought. The Pelican touched down inside Echo Base's main hangar. Princess Leia was waiting, dressed in cold-weather combat gear, a blaster pistol at her hip. Behind her, Han Solo stood beside Chewbacca, both armed and looking like they regretted every decision that led to this moment. The fleet's here, Leia said without preamble. 6-star destroyers. Vader's leading them. I know, Chief replied. Captain Lasky's about to engage. When that happens, Vader will sense the void, sense us. He'll come planetside. And you're sure you can fight him? Chief didn't answer that directly. Get your people to the evacuation transports. If this goes wrong, you need to be ready to scatter. I'm not abandoning my soldiers, Leia said firmly. Then stay in the command center. Coordinate the defense. But don't engage Vader directly, you can't fight what you can't touch. Chief turned to his Spartans. Fire Team Osiris, take positions on the North Ridge. Majestic, South Perimeter. Palmer, you're with me. Center position where Vader will land. Han stepped forward. You need a pilot? Because I've got a bad feeling we're going to need a quick exit. Stay with the princess, Chief said. Make sure she gets out if this base falls. Before Han could argue, the entire ice cavern shook. Distant thunder rolled through the base, not from weather, but from orbit. The battle had begun. The first Mach round struck the Executor's forward shields at 4% the speed of light. The Super Star Destroyer's energy barriers, designed to absorb turbolaser fire and deflect asteroids, held for exactly 0.3 seconds before the kinetic energy overwhelmed them. The tungsten penetrator punched through the dorsal hull, tearing through 12 decks before exiting out the ventral side. Secondary explosions blossomed along the wound as atmosphere vented and systems overloaded. On the Executor's bridge, Admiral Pyatt was thrown from his feet as the ship lurched violently. Warning klaxons screamed. Officers shouted damage reports that painted a catastrophic picture: shields down, power fluctuating, structural integrity compromised. What hit us? Pyatt demanded, pulling himself upright. Unknown projectile, sir. Sensors registered it 1 second before impact, some kind of kinetic weapon traveling at impossible velocity. 5 more Mach rounds followed in rapid succession, each targeting a different Star Destroyer. 3 found their marks, command bridges exploding in silent fury, engines shattering in cascades of debris. 2 destroyers went dark immediately, dead in space, their crews scrambling for escape pods. A third limped away trailing fire and wreckage. From the planet's orbit, the Infinity rose like a predator emerging from camouflage. Her 5-kilometer hull gleamed in Hoth's reflected light, her forward Machs already charging for another salvo. Longsword fighters poured from her bays, 60 spacecraft that looked primitive compared to TIE fighters but whose missile pods and rotary cannons turned the space battle into a massacre. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Pyatt ordered, but the Imperial fleet's doctrine had no answer for weapons that struck before you saw them coming. Focus fire on that vessel. All batteries. The Infinity's shields lit up as hundreds of turbolaser bolts converged on her position. The green energy splashed across the barrier like water against stone, dissipating harmlessly. Captain Lasky's voice came through on Imperial military frequencies, translated by Roland. Imperial Fleet, this is Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity. You attacked us at Tatooine without provocation. You hunted us across multiple systems. Consider this our response. Stand down, or we will destroy every ship in this fleet. Pyatt looked at the tactical display, 2 Star Destroyers destroyed, 3 heavily damaged, TIE fighters being systematically eliminated by enemy craft that shrugged off blaster fire. The alien warship's weapons violated every principle of space combat. How did you fight something your sensors barely registered until it was too late? My lord, he turned to Vader. Orders. But Darth Vader wasn't listening. He stood at the viewport, his hand pressed against the transparisteel, his breathing heavy with something that might have been excitement. There, he said quietly. On the planet. I sense him. The warrior. He waits for me. My lord, we need you here. The fleet is. The fleet is irrelevant. Vader turned, his cape swirling. Ready my shuttle. Assemble a full legion, AT-ATS, snowtroopers, heavy weapons. We will crush this rebellion and take the warrior alive. But the ship. Vader's hand rose, and Pyatt felt pressure on his throat. Not crushing, just, warning. Do. Not. Question. Me. Pyatt nodded frantically, and the pressure released. As Vader strode toward the hangar bay, the Admiral turned back to the tactical display showing the Infinity systematically dismantling his fleet. They were going to lose this battle. The only question was how many ships would survive to retreat. On Hoth's surface, Master Chief stood in the center of Echo Base's outer perimeter, watching the sky. Explosions lit the upper atmosphere, distant flashes as ships died in orbit. The Infinity was winning, exactly as planned. Chief, Roland's voice came through his helmet comm. Vader's launched from the Executor. Multiple landing craft incoming, AT-AT walkers, snowtroopers, heavy armor. ETA 12 minutes. Rebel forces? Chief asked. Evacuating. Princess Leia's loading the last transports now. You'll be alone with the Spartans when Vader arrives. Good, Chief said. That's what we want. Around him, Spartans took positions in the ice trenches and behind defensive barriers. They'd planted anti-personnel mines, set up overlapping fields of fire, positioned rocket launchers and heavy machine guns. The killing ground was prepared. Commander Palmer moved up beside him, her voice carrying dark humor. You know, when I joined the Spartan program, I thought I'd be fighting Covenant remnants and insurrectionists. Never thought I'd be squaring off against a cyborg space wizard on an ice planet in a different galaxy. Adapt and overcome, Chief replied, quoting their training. Right. Adapt and overcome. Palmer chambered a round in her battle rifle. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how screwed are we? Chief watched the sky as the first Imperial landing craft broke through the clouds, massive shapes descending on repulsor fields, AT-AT walkers suspended beneath them like mechanical beasts waiting to be unleashed. 7, he said honestly. Only 7. We've faced worse odds. Name one time. Chief was quiet for a moment, running through 30 years of combat. I can't. But we survived anyway. Palmer laughed, and the sound was swallowed by the howling ice wind as the Empire descended upon them with the full fury of a regime that had never learned what it meant to face soldiers who simply would not break. The AT-AT walkers hit the ice with ground-shaking force, their massive legs absorbing the impact as landing craft released them and retreated. 4 of the mechanical behemoths advanced in a line, their head-mounted cannons swiveling toward Echo Base's trenches. Behind them, snowtroopers deployed by the hundreds, white-armored soldiers carrying E-11 blasters and heavy weapons, moving in disciplined formations that had crushed rebel resistance on a dozen worlds. And among them, walking with deliberate purpose, came Darth Vader. Master Chief watched through his rifle scope as the Sith Lord advanced across the ice plains, his black cape somehow dramatic even in the howling blizzard. Behind him, the Imperial war machine prepared to demonstrate why the galaxy feared the Empire's military might. "All Spartans, weapons free," Chief ordered calmly. "Osiris, take the walkers. Palmer's team, engage infantry. Remember, maintain spacing and keep moving. Don't let Vader isolate you." The first rocket left its launcher with a trail of smoke and fire. Spartan Madsen's M41 SPNKR hit the lead ATAT's forward left leg joint, the vulnerable connection between limb and body. The high-explosive warhead detonated inside the joint mechanism, and 16 tons of metal buckled. The walker staggered, its gait disrupted, pilots fighting to compensate. 3 more rockets followed in rapid succession, targeting the same walker from different angles. The second hit shattered the damaged leg completely. The AT-AT tilted, its remaining legs unable to support the shifted weight, and toppled sideways with the slow majesty of a falling skyscraper. It hit the ice hard enough to send shockwaves through the ground, its crew dead or dying inside the twisted wreckage. "One down," Madsen reported. "Reloading." The snow troopers opened fire immediately, blaster bolts streaking across the ice field. But they were firing at Spartans in defensive positions, warriors whose energy shields absorbed the initial barrage while they acquired targets with methodical precision. When the Spartans returned fire, the difference was stark. UNSC assault rifles barked in controlled bursts. Snow troopers fell, their armor cracking under armor-piercing rounds designed to penetrate energy shields. DMRs picked off officers with single headshots from 200 meters. The M247H machine gun that Spartan Thorn had positioned on the north ridge opened up, it sustained fire creating a wall of death that no Imperial soldier could cross. Within 90 seconds, 40 snow troopers were down. The rest went to ground, using ice formations for cover, their confidence shattered by an enemy that killed with ruthless efficiency. But Vader never slowed. He walked through the firefight as if bullets were inconvenient weather, his lightsaber ignited, the crimson blade deflecting rounds that came within meters of his position. Chief watched him advance with the inevitability of a storm, and recognized the tactic. Vader was drawing fire, forcing the Spartans to reveal their positions, using himself as bait. "Shift fire to the walkers," Chief ordered. "Don't engage Vader until he closes." The remaining 3 at ATS were adapting, spreading out to present harder targets, their head cannons firing at the defensive positions. Green energy bolts struck ice and stone, vaporizing cover and forcing Spartans to relocate. One blast caught Spartan Grant in the open, his shields flared and collapsed, and he was thrown 20 meters by the impact. He hit the ice hard, armor smoking, but his vitals still showed green on Chief's HUD. "Grant's down but alive," Tanaka reported, dragging the wounded Spartan behind cover. "Armor's intact but shields are gone. He's out of this fight." Chief calculated rapidly. 25 Spartans operational, 4 walkers remaining, 200 plus Imperial infantry, and Vader closing to 150 meters. The math was manageable, except for the variable that couldn't be quantified. Vader stopped 75 meters away and raised his left hand. Chief felt it immediately, that crushing pressure, the force trying to collapse his armor like an empty can. Warning indicators flooded his HUD as servos strained, as his titanium ceramic composite groaned under impossible stress. But MJOLNIR armor was designed by Dr. Halsey to withstand tons of force, and Chief's augmented skeleton could bear loads that would powder normal bone. He took a step forward. Vader's mask tilted slightly, and Chief could imagine surprise behind that expressionless facade. The Sith Lord's breathing intensified, the force pressure increasing, but Chief kept moving. 1 step. 2. 3. His armor's reactor was redlining, power distribution system screaming warnings, but he covered 10 meters before Vader released his grip with what might have been frustration. "You are resilient, warrior," Vader's voice carried across the ice. But resilience is insufficient against the power of the dark side. He thrust his right hand forward, and the ice itself erupted. Massive chunks of frozen ground tore free and flew at Chief like missiles, each one weighing hundreds of kilograms, propelled by telekinetic force. Chief dove, his augmented reflexes letting him roll under one boulder-sized chunk, but another caught his shoulder and spun him sideways. His shields absorbed the impact but dropped to 30%. Then Vader was on him. The Sith Lord crossed 30 meters in seconds, moving with speed that matched a Spartan's, his lightsaber a blur of crimson light. Chief brought up his assault rifle to block. The plasma blade met the weapon and sheared through it like butter, cutting the MA-5D in half. Chief dropped the ruined weapon and drew his combat knife in one smooth motion, the 7-inch titanium blade suddenly looking inadequate against a laser sword. Vader's lightsaber came down in an overhead strike designed to split Chief from shoulder to hip. Chief sidestepped, the blade missing by centimeters, and drove his knife toward Vader's chest. The Sith Lord twisted with impossible agility, the Force warning him of the attack before it landed, and Chief's blade skittered off Vader's armor plating without penetrating. They separated, circling, two masters of different combat philosophies evaluating each other. "You fight well for one untouched by the Force," Vader observed. "But every movement, every thought, every intention, I see it before you act. The Force shows me your future." "Then you know what I'm going to do next," Chief replied, his hand moving to his sidearm. He drew and fired in one motion, 6 shots from his M6H Magnum, each one targeted at different points on Vader's armor. Center mass. Neck seal. Helmet breathing apparatus. Control panel on chest. Left knee joint. Right elbow. Vader's lightsaber became a shield, deflecting 5 shots with precision that seemed precognitive. Because it was. But the 6th shot, aimed at his right elbow, was deflected at an angle that sent it ricocheting off his chest plate control panel. Sparks erupted. Vader's breathing stuttered, and for half a second, his concentration broke. Commander Palmer's sniper round hit him in that half-second window. The SRS-99 anti-material rifle was designed to destroy vehicles. Palmer had positioned herself 300 meters north, her shot calculated for wind, distance, and target movement. The 14.5 mm armor-piercing round struck Vader's left shoulder plate, and even his armor couldn't fully absorb the kinetic energy. The impact spun him partially around, and Chief heard the mechanical breathing grow labored. "Now!" Chief ordered. 20 Spartans opened fire simultaneously. Assault rifles, battle rifles, DMRs, and the massive machine gun on the ridge, all concentrating fire on Vader's position. It was overwhelming firepower, enough to shred an unshielded target in seconds. But Vader raised both hands, and the bullets stopped. Mid-air. Hovering. Hundreds of rounds suspended by the Force, frozen in space like some impossible sculpture. Chief watched through his visor as Vader held them there, his breathing ragged but his power absolute. This was the dark side at full strength, reality bending to will, physics becoming negotiable. "Impressive," Vader rasped. Then he clenched his fists, and every bullet reversed direction. The Spartans dove for cover as their own ammunition flew back at them. Rounds pinged off armor, shattered ice, forced warriors who'd never retreated to scramble behind whatever protection they could find. 2 Spartans weren't fast enough, their shields collapsed under the barrage, armor cracked, and they went down wounded but alive. Chief used the distraction. While Vader was focused on the redirected bullets, Chief activated his armor's thruster pack, a burst of propulsion that threw him forward at 40 km per hour, closing the distance before Vader could react. He slammed into the Sith Lord with the force of a small vehicle, both warriors going down in a tangle of armor and cape. They grappled on the ice, technology versus force, augmented strength versus dark side power. Chief got his armored hand around Vader's lightsaber wrist, his hydraulic grip keeping the blade away from his body. Vader's free hand pressed against Chief's chest plate, and Chief felt electricity arc through his armor, force lightning, channeled directly into his systems. Warning klaxons screamed. Shield generator offline. Left arm servo jammed. HUD flickering. Vader was systematically destroying his armor from the inside, finding every vulnerability, every weak point. Chief headbutted him. The motion was simple, brutal, effective. His armored helmet struck Vader's mask with enough force to dent the durasteel. Vader's grip loosened for just a moment, and Chief used that moment to wrench the lightsaber from his hand. The weapon deactivated as it left Vader's grip, rolling across the ice. For 3 seconds, they were both disarmed, both damaged, both warriors who'd pushed beyond their limits. Chief's armor was failing. Vader's breathing was erratic, his shoulder leaking fluid from Palmer's shot, his chest panel sparking. "You cannot win," Vader gasped. "The Force is infinite." "Don't need to win," Chief replied, his voice strained. "Just need to buy time." Above them, the sky erupted in fire. The Infinity had finished with the Imperial fleet, 5-star destroyers destroyed or disabled, the Executor limping away with catastrophic damage. Now Captain Lasky brought his warship into low orbit above Echo Base, and the remaining AT-AT walkers learned what orbital fire support meant in UNSC doctrine. Mac rounds struck from above at reduced velocity, not enough to crack the planet but more than enough to obliterate ground targets. The 3 remaining walkers simply ceased to exist, vaporized in impacts that turned ice into steam and metal into plasma. The snow troopers who hadn't already retreated broke completely, running for their landing craft, the battle lost. Vader struggled to his feet, one hand reaching toward his fallen lightsaber through the Force. The weapon flew back to his hand, igniting as his fingers closed around it. But he didn't advance. He stood there, breathing mechanically, assessing the tactical situation. His fleet was destroyed. His ground forces were routed. The alien warriors had proven they could fight him, not defeat him, but fight him to a standstill. "This is not over," Vader said, his voice carrying promise and threat in equal measure. "The Emperor will hear of this. Your ship, your warriors, your resistance, all will be crushed. There is no corner of this galaxy where you can hide." "We're not hiding," Chief replied, standing slowly, his damaged armor whining in protest. "And we're not running. You want another fight, you know where to find us." For a long moment, Vader stared at Chief through that emotionless mask. Then he turned and walked toward his shuttle, his cape dragging through ice and blood, the last Imperial forces scrambling to evacuate around him. Commander Palmer limped over to Chief, her armor scored and smoking. "Did we just win?" "We survived," Chief corrected, watching Vader's shuttle lift off, heading for the crippled Executor. "That's close enough." Across the battlefield, Spartans were recovering wounded, salvaging equipment, counting casualties. 2 Spartans critically wounded, 5 with damaged armor, but everyone alive. Against Vader and an Imperial legion, that qualified as a miracle. Princess Leia emerged from Echo Base, her face pale but composed, looking at the destroyed walkers and scattered Imperial equipment. "You held them. Against Vader himself, you held the line. Your soldiers helped," Chief said. "And Captain Lasky's orbital support made the difference." Still. Leia looked up at the Infinity hanging in orbit like a guardian angel made of metal and firepower. "You've done what the rebellion hasn't managed in 4 years. You fought the Empire and won." Chief didn't correct her, though "won" was generous. They'd forced a tactical withdrawal against 1 Imperial fleet. The Empire had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, and an Emperor who commanded the Force itself. This battle was one small victory in a war that wasn't theirs to fight. But looking at Leia's expression, hope mixing with exhaustion, Chief understood that sometimes, one victory was enough to keep people fighting. "Our slip space drive is repaired," he said quietly. "Dr. Glassman says we can attempt a jump within 24 hours. If it works, we'll be gone. Back to our own galaxy." "And if it doesn't work?" Leia asked. Chief looked up at the Infinity, at the ship that had become home for 17,000 souls stranded in an impossible situation. Then we stay. And we keep fighting. Because that's what we do. Leia smiled, small, sad, but genuine. Then I hope, for your sake, that your drive works. And for ours. I hope it doesn't. As the Spartans began their extraction, as the Infinity's pelicans descended to recover personnel, as the last echoes of battle faded into Hoth's eternal wind, Master Chief looked back one last time at the ice planet where humanity had made its stand in a galaxy far from home. They'd come here by accident. They'd fought to survive. And somehow, impossibly, they'd won. But the war, both the rebellions and humanity's struggle to return home, was far from over. 23 hours after the Battle of Hoth, the UNSC Infinity hung in high orbit, her repair crews working frantically on final slip space drive calibrations. The Rebel Alliance fleet had withdrawn to a safe distance, close enough to observe, far enough to avoid catastrophe if the jump went wrong. On the Infinity's bridge, Captain Lasky stood at the command station, his senior staff assembled, every screen showing diagnostic readouts that would determine whether 17,000 souls went home or were torn apart in slip space. Master Chief stood beside him, his armor repaired but bearing new scars, testament to the battle that had already become legend among both UNSC and Rebel forces. Through the viewport, he could see Rebel corvettes holding position, their crews watching humanity's most powerful warship prepare to attempt the impossible. Slip space drive is online, Dr. Glassman reported, his voice tight with controlled tension. All systems nominal. The exotic matter synthesis worked, we've got enough fuel for one jump. But Captain, I can't guarantee where we'll end up. The dimensional coordinates are based on theoretical calculations using technology we barely understand. Will it get us home? Lasky asked simply. It'll get us somewhere. Whether that's our galaxy or somewhere else, Glassman shrugged helplessly. 50-50 odds. Lasky looked at Roland's avatar. Thoughts? The AI was uncharacteristically somber. We stay here, we're at war with the Empire. We've humiliated them, destroyed their fleet, fought their ultimate warrior to a draw. Palpatine won't let that stand. Eventually, they'll come with overwhelming force, dozens of Star Destroyers, maybe their new Death Star. We can win battles, but we can't win a war against an entire galaxy. And if we jump, we might get home. We might end up somewhere worse. Or we might scatter into slip space as disconnected atoms. Roland's avatar met Lasky's eyes. But at least we'd be trying to return to the people who need us. Earth. The UNSC. Our actual war. Chief understood the calculus. They'd done what they could here, given the rebellion intelligence, proven the Empire could be fought, bought time for Echo Base to evacuate. But this wasn't their war. 17,000 crew members had families waiting across dimensional barriers, had missions left incomplete, had a human species that still needed defending. Captain, the communications officer spoke up. We're receiving a transmission from the Home One. Princess Leia wants to speak with you. Lasky gestured, and Leia's hologram appeared, life-sized, standing in the Infinity's bridge as if physically present. She looked exhausted but determined, wearing the white robes that had become her trademark. Captain Lasky. Master Chief. I wanted to speak with you before you attempt your jump. She paused, choosing words carefully. What you've done here, what you've given us, it's more than ships or weapons or tactical intelligence. You've given us something we'd almost lost. Hope. The belief that the Empire isn't invincible. That warriors from beyond our galaxy could arrive and fight Vader himself to a standstill. We did what we had to, Lasky replied. Same as you've been doing for years. Perhaps. But you had a choice. You could have hidden, avoided the Empire entirely, focused solely on returning home. Instead, you stood with us when you had nothing to gain. Leia's expression softened. The rebellion won't forget that. Whatever happens, wherever your ship ends up, know that there are people in this galaxy who will remember humanity as allies. Chief spoke, his voice carrying weight earned through 3 decades of impossible wars. Princess, you asked us once if we'd help you win your war. We couldn't do that, it's not our fight to win. But you don't need us to win. You've survived 4 years against overwhelming odds. You destroyed the Death Star with a handful of fighters. You held Echo Base while an Imperial Legion tried to crush you. Everything you need to win, you already have. We have hope, Leia said quietly. Because of you. No, Chief corrected gently. You had hope before we arrived. You just needed someone to remind you of it. The moment stretched, 3 warriors from different galaxies acknowledging the bond forged in battle. Then Leia straightened, her royal bearing returning. Safe travels, Captain. Master Chief. May the Force be with you, even if you exist outside it. The hologram faded. Lasky turned to his crew. All stations, prepare for slipspace jump. Notify all personnel to secure stations. Roland, coordinate with navigation. Let's go home. Deep in the ship, Spartans strapped into crash seats. Engineers secured equipment. Marines said prayers to gods from 100 worlds. Everyone aboard knew they might be jumping to their deaths, but staying meant dying slowly in a war that wasn't theirs. Chief stood at his position on the bridge, watching through the viewport as space began to ripple. The slipspace drive charged, reality tearing itself apart at the quantum level, dimensions bleeding into each other. The rebel fleet backed away as the Infinity began to glow with Forerunner energy, her hull shimmering like a mirage. Slipspace rupture in 10 seconds, Roland counted down. 9. 8. 7. Chief thought about Earth, 3 decades of war, the Covenant, the Flood, every battle that had brought him to this impossible moment. He thought about Cortana, about the countless Spartans who died so humanity could survive, about a promise he'd made to come home. 3. 2. 1. Jump. Reality shattered. The Infinity tore through dimensional barriers with the force of a collapsing star, her Forerunner drive punching through spacetime itself. For the crew, it felt like falling through broken glass made of lightning, every nerve screaming, time losing meaning. The ship groaned as forces that shouldn't exist pulled at her hull. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. Stars. Unfamiliar constellations. A different sky. Navigation, where are we? Lasky demanded. Lieutenant Dominique worked frantically at her station, running star charts, comparing readings. Captain, we're receiving UNSC emergency beacons. Multiple signals. And there's Earth. We're in the Sol system. We made it home. The bridge erupted in cheers, officers hugging, crew members crying, decades of tension releasing in a moment of pure relief. They'd survived impossible odds, fought in a different galaxy, and somehow, impossibly, found their way back. Chief allowed himself the smallest smile, hidden behind his helmet. They were home. The mission was complete. But in a galaxy far, far away, on the ice planet Hoth, Princess Leia stood with Han Solo and watched the space where the Infinity had been. The ripples of its departure still echoed across sensors, a dimensional scar that would take hours to heal. Think they made it? Han asked. I hope so, Leia replied. They deserve to go home. So do we all, Han said quietly. Then, with his characteristic bravado returning, all right, let's get out of here before the Empire sends another fleet. We've got a rebellion to run and a galaxy to save. As they walked back toward the Millennium Falcon, Leia looked up at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, beyond dimensions and impossible distances, humanity had returned to their war. And here, in a galaxy still fighting for freedom, the rebellion would continue its struggle with renewed hope. The UNSC Infinity had arrived by accident, fought alongside them for a brief moment in galactic history, and departed, leaving behind a lesson that would echo through the rebellion's ranks. Even the Empire could be beaten. Even Vader could bleed. Even impossible wars could be won. In the Emperor's throne room on Coruscant, Darth Vader knelt before his master, his damaged armor a testament to battles fought and survived. Palpatine's hologram loomed above him, ancient eyes burning with dark fire. "You have failed me, Lord Vader. The alien ship has escaped. Your fleet lies in ruins. And worse, you allowed warriors from beyond our galaxy to wound you." "Yes, my master," Vader's mechanical voice acknowledged. "But I learned from them. Their technology. Their tactics. Their resistance to the Force." He looked up, and even through the mask, ambition was evident. "When they return, and they will return, we will be ready. And we will take their power for our own." Palpatine's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Good. Good. Let them think they've won. Let them believe they've escaped. But the dark side sees all, reaches everywhere, touches even dimensions beyond our own." His expression grew cold. "The United Nations Space Command will return. And when they do, they will learn that no one defies the Empire and survives. But that was a war for another day, in a future not yet written, where two galaxies might collide again and warriors from different stars would meet on battlefields beyond imagination. For now, in the Sol system, Master Chief stood on the Infinity's bridge and looked at Earth hanging in space like a blue marble wrapped in clouds. He was home. 17,000 crew members were home. The UNSC's greatest warship had survived impossible circumstances and returned to continue the fight that truly mattered. The galaxy far, far away had taught him something important. No matter how dark the times, no matter how overwhelming the enemy, there were always people willing to fight for what they believed in. The rebellion would endure. The Empire would eventually fall. And hope, that most resilient of human qualities, would survive even the darkest nights. Spartans never died, the saying went. They were just missing in action. Well, this Spartan had been missing across dimensions, had fought in a war that wasn't his, and had come home with a story that no one would quite believe. But that was fine. The mission was complete. And for warriors like Master Chief, that was all that ever really mattered. May the Force be with you. More stories await.